this is Marlene with Miami Ghost Chronicles, and I want to welcome you to another episode of Stories of the Supernatural. Wherever you find us, whether it's a video or podcast on your favorite platform, please like and subscribe to us so that you can get notification of when a new show is released. You can also find us on major social media platforms. If you go to miamighostchronicles.com, you can find links to the videos or MP3 files, which you can download and enjoy without commercial interruptions. If you're into classic horror, ghost, and adventure stories, I narrate Nightshade Diary, and you can find links at nightshadediary.com. If scary stories are your bag, and listening to encounters with cryptids, ghosts, dogmen, and other weird creatures sends a shiver up your spine, then go to supernaturalstorytime.com for links to our weekly podcasts. Noteworthy news about the paranormal world, true crime, conspiracy stories, and anything that is just plain weird can be found at eerie.news or visit the Stranger Than Fiction Stories tab at miamighostchronicles.com. Please subscribe to my newsletter on Substack. Just go to mppellicer.com for a link. I want to thank you for being part of my audience, and I think you are all wonderful. Hi, everybody. How's everybody doing? Good, I hope. And believe it or not, I don't need my generator this week because, as you know, the last 2 weeks, one was because Hurricane Idalia was coming through here, but also last week, for some reason, like that impeccable timing kind of deal, electricity went out and my generator saved the day. So third time's a charm. So no generator this time, which is good. And so everything is fine. No hurricanes. Because, even though I grew up in South Florida and I'm used to it, and I moved up to North Florida to get away from the hurricanes, they chased me. They came in, above north of me, but it was like they came off the Gulf Coast, and it's like, hey, what is this? I moved to North Florida to get away from the hurricanes, and you still get them. But no, it's good. From what I've seen, there's a couple churning out there, but they're going to end up somewhere in the mid-Atlantic or by, I think Cape Cod might have some problems with the waves, but that's about it. Otherwise, everything is good here. It's still hot. However, I do show that starting next week, we're going already at night. It's going to drop into the 60s. And I know for a lot of people, it's like, that's what we have already. But living in Florida lately, it's even in North Florida, it's been hot in the day. And kind of even when you step outside in the middle of the night, it's still kind of warm. So bottom line, I'm very happy to have that cold weather start rolling in. Even though 60 is not cold, but for me, yes. And yes, I have my enforcer here. Everybody that's seen the last 2 shows know that this is how I keep my little pack of, that they're all hanging out in line. I squirt some water on them. All right. Instead of going, hey, you guys, be quiet. Because, of course, they're like children. They make noise. They run around. They bark. All the other things right when they shouldn't. Right now, they're all, believe it or not, all 8 of them are underneath here just hanging out with me. But if they hear any noise, they'll get they want to defend me. But what can I say? I love them all. So, getting on to the good part. The good part is who the guest is this week on Stories of the Supernatural. This is the first time this lady's been here. Her name is Reverend Chickie Haute. She specializes in matters of happiness, health, abundance, love, timelines, intentions, motives, and defining outcomes for your life. As a coach, she will hold you accountable and help you create reasonable goals. She's an internationally known professional life, love, and well-being coach, business entrepreneur, spiritual mentor, and life healer. Reverend Chickie is trained and credentialed with more than 30 years of professional experience. She has helped more than 15,000 successful and capable people worldwide, including but not limited to actors, producers, vocal recording artists, musicians, doctors, lawyers, business executives, sportscasters, athletes, politicians, military, law enforcement, fellow metaphysicians, radio, TV personalities, and stage entertainers. Reverend Chickie is a duly ordained Reverend and Minister of Love's Church Online, Universal Life Church, and Church of Spiritual Humanism, for which she is non-denominational and respectful of all beliefs and religions. She's also known as Rock Psychic. Currently, Rock Psychic Diary Radio is on Be Inspired Radio, and she also ministers service on Love's Church Online, which can be tuned in on Be Inspired Radio. Help me welcome her. How are you doing today, Chickie?
Just wonderful. Thank you so very much, Marlene, for having me on the show.
On the contrary, it's my pleasure. Chickie, it's really surprising because, and not surprising, but I kind of understand it, that a lot of times people don't realize that all these successful people, like you said, actors, uh, rock stars, that they've got people behind the scenes that work with them all the
Yes.
time to basically keep them, I don't want to say in line, but believing in themselves. Everybody looks at their outside facade and sees this very confident, capable person, whatever it is that they might be doing.
Correct.
And nobody has any idea that they might go back to their hotel or something and go, oh my God, I'm horrible. All the things that everybody else feels or thinks. What's
Yes.
been your experience with that as far as,
It's been absolutely phenomenal to be able to help all of these people. And it's one of those types of things where everybody needs to be able to get a hand up sometimes. And
hmm
as a professional practitioner, it has been a whirlwind. I have to say it's been a whirlwind because I get to meet people from all walks of life. And I have even had, it's funny because even I need help sometimes.
sure.
I sit with psychologists, I'll sit with a psychiatrist, a neuropsychologist, I'll work with a social worker, I'll work with a regular therapist or a counselor, even for myself, because everybody needs a little bit of support.
hmm
However, for me, because I'm so well rounded, sometimes I'll even sit with a fellow spiritual practitioner for that matter.
Right.
It depends on what I'm working on. So within my practice, people love me. And this is what they've been telling me is because I bring a perfect blend of spirituality and psychology. And I explain how those components work and why they work. And of course, all the pieces of the puzzle start coming together, and they're like, you make a lot of sense. I had the pleasure at one point to be able to help one of the assistant producers for even Grey's Anatomy because I get into the whole mind body thing.
hmm
So they enjoyed working with me for quite a many of years, and I enjoyed working with them. However, it's definitely a wild ride when you go ahead and people let you into their lives and they let you know like where it is they're coming from, what they're struggling with, and they're just like you and I.
Of course.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
then you know what? And I'm glad you pointed that out because I don't know why, but for some reason people think spirituality is here and psychology is over here.
Mm-hmm.
And the two don't mix. Or, hey, this is strictly a psychological or let's go the science-based kind of approach. And they
Yeah,
think spirituality is like, no, that's separate. And I think human beings, a human condition is it's inevitable that these two things overlap
yeah, definitely.
because of, what we think is, translates to our heart, how we feel.
Mhm.
It's all that dynamic, which, of course, this is why, and I think sometimes people try to logic things. Yeah, I logically want this or want to this outcome, but they end up doing something different,
Yeah,
you know? And it's
definitely.
because we're not always logical beings. We're not robots.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. We're very
And
emotional.
we're emotional, and sometimes that has a lot to do with this, what's going on in our spiritual lives,
Yes,
as far as
exactly.
how we react to things,
Yeah,
um, as far as even when it comes right down to it, our actions. How you could have something pre-planned. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that, and then when the moment arrives, you end up doing something totally different, and you're like,
yes,
how could I have done that? It's because that emotion part of you, or the spirituality, you leave it out of the equation,
right. Yeah,
and I think that there's more to us than just that. Like I said, even though a lot, that Mr. Spock approach,
yeah,
if it's not logical,
right. Yeah,
something's wrong with me. Uh, Let me
yeah.
ask you, how did you get into this? Was it when you were younger? Did you have an event? What drove you to go into this type of a field?
It's very interesting. Very, very interesting. Since the time I was in the crib, I can be able to remember. And there were plenty of times when I was in the crib, my mother tormented me. My bedroom was about, I would say, maybe 10 feet wide. My crib was
Okay.
at one wall. And then on the other wall, there was a table with a 7-inch black and white television. I'm dating myself, forgive me.
Oh, that word. I get it.
So I couldn't see it because baby's eyes are not fully developed and your vision is
Right.
horrible. So I
Uh-huh.
had to be able to, and what a baby and how a baby relates to the world. A baby is not told, you know, hey, you can't out of body.
Right, of
Right
course.
out of body. Yeah. I'm right
Yeah.
there in front of the TV, like right here. I'm like, oh, now I can see it better. Thank you. I can watch my Sesame Street, my electric company, my Zoom, all these things
Mm-hmm.
back in the day. And for some reason, I noticed as I got older, I wasn't doing these things as often.
Okay.
And I kept on saying to myself, as a small infant still in the crib, don't forget, don't forget, don't forget. And it was very difficult because as you get older, you become inundated with the data, the information that society needs to give you to condition you
Yes.
for how to be able to show up in society. And when you're an infant, there's no limits. You do what you're going to do, right? Until
Mm-hmm.
you're told you can't do that. So
Right.
I started learning, oh, you can't do this. But I noticed as more information was coming in and how I was acclimating to this reality, okay, that other people weren't doing these things. No, it was like an unheard of thing. And me, it just came natural. But then after a while, I started forgetting. And I says, I got to remember, I have to remember. And then there was an event around when I was maybe 7 or 8 years old. My parents left me alone for the first time ever. And I was like, oh my goodness, wow. Okay, they're going out for dinner. I'm just going to do my own thing. I was
Okay.
Z100 down New York City and listen to the radio. And I guess I remember exactly what was happening. I was building sandcastles out of sugar and
Oh
water.
boy.
What do you do when you're a kid and you
Of
left
course I was gonna say
get the 5 pound bag of sugar and start building sandcastles on the
yeah.
living room floor. So I was doing that, and then I got this weird chill up my spine. I'm like, what is that? And my cat was sitting next to me. The cat looked up across this very long, I would have to say the living room was about maybe 20 feet long. It was a very long
Uh-huh.
apartment in a tenement building in Queens. So the cat sitting next to me, and we're both looking towards the window. It's winter, maybe like fall, late fall into winter. The windows are closed,
Okay.
and we had. I lived in a Jewish community. Okay, so
Okay.
and my family was part Jewish. So we had on the walls this very heavy drapery, and it was you've got the walls on either side, then you've got a double encased window, like a double window,
Okay.
hung window, whatever.
Uh-huh.
There's two windows next to one another, fire escape up a lot. And on the sides of the wall, this big drapery is hanging there. And there's the windows are closed, the air conditioner's closed off, everything. There's no air coming in. And the drapery is doing this. And
Oh.
the cat is sitting right next to me. And I'm like, you got to be friggin' kidding me. What is this?
So you
What
can blame it
is
on the cat.
I grabbed my cat and I ran out of that apartment like a bat out of hell. And I waited down in the lobby for my parents to get home from their dinner date. And I didn't say a thing. I kept my lips sealed. And for a week after that, I kept on wondering what was that. And that was the
Okay.
first time after that week I learned how to time shift. I says, I need to go back to that moment. And I
Okay.
focused and I focused and I focused and I went back and I looked at it and I saw nothing and I saw nothing. And it wasn't until recently that I was working on the North American Psychic and Paranormal Network.
All
And I was
right.
with another psychic and I says, okay, I need somebody to be able to spot me. And what we did was I went back, but I had somebody kind of holding on to like almost like my silver cord of life because
Okay.
I don't know what was back there. It could have been
Sure.
a portal. And you know what? I
Yeah.
was right. It was a portal. And I had
Really.
somebody witness it. And we went ahead and we moved the curtain. We went back in time.
Uh-huh.
We moved the curtain. And there it is, swirls of air. I was like, that's a portal.
And let me ask you, did you ever have anything like that happen? I mean, how long were you living there after that? At that.
Oh, man. I lived there for like 20 years about.
Okay, so that's a long time.
It
Did you
is.
ever have a similar experience or have that feeling like what you described, that chill?
I did not spend any time in that apartment after that. I shouldn't
Really?
say any, but I avoided because there was a lot of domestic issues going on in that
Okay.
apartment, for lack of better words. I think a lot of people understand when you're growing up back then,
Yes.
things were swept under the carpet. So
Mm-hmm.
that energy
Okay.
definitely we know that portals open when there is a lot of domestic, for a lack of better
Yeah.
words. We know there's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
domestic problems, and portals will open, and it's almost like the gateway to hell. And that's
Okay.
kind of sort of what I had witnessed. That's why my instincts, my intuition as a child said, "Run for your life."
Right,
And
because
that's
I'm thinking,
what
what did your parents think when they found you down in the lobby that you had just wigged out being by yourself? So you
I
brought the
did.
cat.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And my parents were like, "What are you doing down here?" I'm like, "I'm just playing."
All
I
right, and then you're a kid. It's like,
Yeah,
okay.
but it was more along the lines of I don't want to get them involved because I don't want to tamper with their belief systems. I came into this world with set belief systems, a deeper understanding of the universe, and I've had that since I was a very small. And how many infants can be able to out of body?
Sure, of course. And
You know,
that's interest. And it makes you wonder, though, why that portal appeared. What do you think at that moment that you happened to be by yourself? Why do you think that was?
that's a very good question. That is a very good
Unless I
question.
was hoping that you would get lured into it. I don't know.
Yes, lured into it because when I did
Mm-hmm.
uh, go back and look at this,
Right.
my girlfriend Janice on the North American Psychic, which is nappin.net, she went ahead and she said, "Let's go in." And I said, "Are you sure that you want to do this?" We both went in and we got
Mm-hmm.
very disoriented. And what it did was, you know how there's a theory, and the theory says we have like Earth 1, Earth 2, Earth 3, or 4, the multiverse.
Right.
This was a passage to another reality. And where we went, everything was distorted.
Let me ask you,
It
do
did
you think
not.
that this is equivalent or this was a place equivalent to like what they call the middle plane? Uh, or was this like what you said, like a pass through between dimensions, which is pretty scary when you
It
think
was
about
it
it.
was to another dimension, it was to another reality, and we had, like, a chain, like, you're pulling somebody up by a rope, so
Yes.
she came with me, and then somebody else got involved, another person got involved in the chat, and we were all together in the video, and everybody's holding to each other's, grounding us with the silver
Right.
cord of life and keeping us grounded, so that way we can be able to come back, but the things that we saw when we went through that portal, that was
Uh-huh.
that was yeah, yeah. That's not,
Because
that's not
that's what
camping.
I've heard that
No.
sometimes when people go through portals, that you
Yes.
can encounter things which are like not even
Yeah.
I don't want to use that there's very you could come across very dark malevolent. It's like no man's land, like out, the old west, like what's out there. It could
Yeah.
be good, it could be bad, it could be in between. As far as either entities or presence, that you have to be really careful sometimes, they say, when you go into some, that's why some of these portals, for somebody that doesn't know what it is, even they say either in meditation or in dream time,
Yeah.
that sometimes going to these portals is not a good thing. And I've heard even of remote viewers having problems
Yes.
when
Yes.
they do the remote viewing of
Yeah.
what they run into, what they encounter.
Yeah. Have you ever seen any of the art by Pablo Picasso, the very abstract works?
Yes, I have, and I don't get it. How's that? It's
He was
very,
accessing another dimension because that
yeah,
is
I've
what
heard of
it
that.
looked like. It was abstract.
Really?
It was abstract. Things that were supposed to be right side up or upside down or sideways, or
Mm-hmm.
go into that whole Alice in Wonderland
Yes.
concept where things are
Mm-hmm.
really big or really small or odd
Right.
shaped, and you're odd. That's what it was. So
Right.
these people, like Carol, who did the whole Alice in Wonderland, and
Mm-hmm.
Picasso, these people are accessing these extra dimensional, I guess, states.
Right. Like Dali, if you look at some of his works, which is like the
Yeah.
elongated, like you said,
Yes.
like very like they're not conforming to gravity or what we know in this dimension. They're
Right.
there, we recognize them, but it's like that's not right. And
Yeah.
I know what you mean by Picasso, where things are like off
Yeah.
kilter.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like, what am I looking
That
at?
that let me tell you something. I think that would have really wigged me out if I saw something like that
We got
because
everybody who witnessed it, Janice and myself, and anybody else who took a little peek, got very disturbed from the whole entire thing.
yes,
And we vowed to be able to not go back to that time or not to be able to engage that because when psychics or mediums or whatever go ahead and access things that are outside of our dimension, it can fracture your reality. It can cause insanity. And if
Yes.
unless you know exactly, okay, this is not real, this is not real, this is not real, this is not real, and you are grounded and you have people tethering you, it
Mm-hmm.
can you're running into the danger zone, really. I
Sure.
mean, but you got to remember it's interesting, because what exactly is the multiverse? Is it something that's existing within time? I figured it out, that it's every single beings, even a plant, even an animal, anybody who has a perception, that creates another universe, a way we understand the universe, and perceptions are all different. So you
Yes.
could go ahead and lock into something, but can it be transmitted? That's the big question. This is where we get into some quantum science.
Sure.
And this is even stuff they're working on with the particle colliders. They're opening these like mini black holes. It's kind of like, wow.
Right, which is, what they're doing out in Switzerland,
Yes, that's particle
with those
collider.
particle collider,
Sure.
which they turned, I think it's going to be they stopped it, and I think it's they turned it back on a few months ago
Oh,
in CERN. And the concern here is that they don't know what, in other words, that they really not sure what
well,
it
they
is
are
they're
sure.
doing. And
They know what they're doing. Do you realize that we've got hundreds of particle colliders all over the world?
but almost like they know, but they, at the same time, there's an X factor there that they could produce something that even they don't, might not, what's the word I'm using,
Can't control it or do with
control,
it. Yeah.
or
I think that we've got assistance. To be honest with you, I really believe that we've got assistance from other technologies, to word it nicely.
okay.
Other entities, if you will. And we have for quite a long time.
Are you talking here extraterrestrials, or are we
How we
talking
would understand it.
intradimensionals?
Either or, either it's all
Okay.
alien to us,
Or the
at the
same
end of
thing,
the
because I know
day.
there's people out there that think it's the
Right.
same thing.
Exactly. So I think that if you go ahead and you go into a Google search and you say, how many particle colliders are there in the world? There's a wiki out there, and it lists
Uh-huh.
every single particle collider. There's a particle collider right here in central New York. It's like
Really?
somewhere,
I did not
yeah,
know that. I
Rochester,
need to
Albany
look that up.
area, Binghamton area, something like. Oh, they're all over the place. They got them everywhere. Any major university. I think even Princeton has one. They're all over the place. You'll blow
I don't
your
know.
mind. God's honest truth.
No, I've got to look that up, because here I'm thinking
Yeah.
CERN has got the big collider, and God, and I don't know, you've seen the video of what they did, the ceremonies that they did when they were getting it. I was like, this is really weird. I mean, come on,
Yeah.
it's anything but scientific, but it's very unusual, the
Yeah.
significance that they hang around
Hmm.
what they hope to do. In other words, you look at it as purely supposedly a very scientific or mathematical or whatever
Sure.
endeavor, but there's a lot of, how's the spirituality, for lack of a better word, that's thrown in the mix.
I can tell you
Um,
more about that.
go, please.
Okay. So this goes back to the 1960s, even. We have been preparing for the ushering of a new era.
Hmm.
And we see this with the Great Reset, the World Economic Forum. We see this with all of these movers and shakers, if you will, like these Charles
Yes.
Schwab type of people that
Hmm.
are creating such great influence. And granted, our American media or even our international media, all of it's propaganda. The government will only share with you what the
Oh,
government wants
yes.
you to know. Okay. And if you're noticing, more and more of the news articles, whether you go to news on New York Post or Yahoo
Yep.
or Google or whatever your favorite news aggregate is, the stories are getting more and more preposterous as we move forward.
Right. And I think people are realizing that they
Entertainment.
all sound the same. They change,
Yeah,
switch around, let's say, headlines.
yeah,
They switch around
exactly.
a few words, but in essence, it's like, okay, you're all like the same thing.
Yes. So we originally had some Eastern religions that were quite young, and they started to be able to create some greater influences in comparison to some of the other Abrahamic religions as well. So they're saying, okay, so we're doing out with the Abrahamic, and it seems as though the church, which is representing a lot of the Abrahamic beliefs, is in accordance to this, because I can't begin to tell you how many times I've walked into a church and I tour different churches. I'll go to a
Hmm.
Presbyterian church, I'll go to a Baptist church, I'll go to a Catholic church, I'll go to a Christian church, I'll show up in Lutheran churches, and I'm noticing a lot of them are all talking about meditation. Where did that all start from? So,
Well, that's and then before, and I'm going to put this for anybody that's been alive a little bit longer.
yeah,
I don't know if you remember back in the 1960s, you especially saw it with rock stars. They
yes,
started traveling to India, and
yes,
and all
yeah.
this all of a sudden took off
Yeah,
out
look
of
at
the blue.
Kashmir. Yeah, look at the song Kashmir by Led Zeppelin. I had the pleasure of
Yes.
meeting Robert Plant. You know, it was just like, oh my God, this dude, he's got knowledge, you know.
Right, right. All of these, it was like everybody took a trip to India. The Beatles, everybody became,
Yeah.
some of them even were with some of these different religious, leaders. Like everybody wanted to be, the in thing was to incorporate that Eastern,
Yes,
and
there's
that's
a
when also
reason.
meditation took off and all that stuff.
Yes, those were our in the 1960s. We had influencers, just like we do now. Okay. However,
Hmm.
those influencers came from mostly music and television and movies. And a lot of them got their information from the East. Now, a lot of this spirituality, if you will, that's being pulled in from the East is being labeled here in the Western world as quote unquote New Age,
I remember
regardless.
the new, yes,
Right. And it's still going. Spirituality is still considered New Age. However,
right,
this is all part of merging what we know as science right now and logic, which is the direction. You can't deny the science. Who said that? I'm not going to get into it. We're going to stay away from
right,
that one. But
right,
you can't deny, because this is the direction where we're going, is where science and spirituality shake hands. Okay. Now, this is where our government is going. This is where structure and society is going. And the church is in agreement to this because they're bolstering it.
sure,
And now, if you remember, even during COVID-19, they shut down all the churches,
yes,
everything. And that was big.
yes.
Since when does the government have control over the churches?
Nothing. And but they left liquor stores open. It was like, huh? It was very, I don't know, at least to me, it was very
Mm-hmm.
apparent that it was like, okay, if there's fear of contagion, you would think
Yeah.
everything would be
You
shut
need
down. So yeah,
God. Yeah, you need God. You need Jesus. You need
of course.
something. Exactly. But then people were turning into meditation. They were turning to exercise. They were realizing my body is my temple,
Hmm.
whatever it took. But I will tell you right now that there's whole new age thing right now. And there's plenty of authors who have documented this as well, that said we have information about this. And it goes as far back as even Eisenhower, they were planning all of this. So now we've got this whole spirituality aligning with science, and science is government. You must believe in the science,
Right.
because the new age movement, the spirituality is not about the supernatural. It is all about making logic, about psychology, mind body connection. And even now, a lot
Hmm.
of people are suffering because they're going to the doctors and they're not getting any answers. And they're
Right.
blaming it on socialist medical systems. That's not what it is. That's not what it's survival of the fittest, really, because you need to figure out your mind body thing. And all these people that are sick with all of these things, they have no idea. They're like, doctor, I can't get rid of my sinus allergies, and they go, try
Right.
this pill, try that pill, do this, and nothing works. What's the root of the issue? Granted, I know the root of the issue because that's my profession.
Right.
you know,
Exactly.
exactly.
But
But
most people are taught to think, I want to say that people usually turn away from Western medicine at the last ditch. The when they're at the end of that, they've exhausted all the other things. And the reason why I say this is I was a hypnotherapist for many years, and I would get a lot of people walk in there like, of course, I have different preconceived ideas about what hypnosis did, but it was because they had tried a bunch of other stuff,
right,
and it was like, hey, I'm willing to try this,
right,
but of course, because they had and don't get me wrong, I understand why.
sure,
You should go to a doctor if you have certain symptoms. I understand that. But uh, yeah, I ran across a lot of them that, guess what? They didn't get a concrete answer or solution for whatever was bothering them. Like you said, it could be a body mind symptom. It could be trauma expressed in the body.
yes,
Sheesh. It could be, your subconscious. It's something that you don't recognize or remember, but subconsciously you do. It's
you got
stored
it
in your
right.
subconscious mind and
Mhm.
it's expressed, and especially if you have it very submerged, it will express itself, especially in through your body, different
Yes,
ways. You
definitely.
know,
Yeah,
it's
perfect
the more
example.
traumatic usually, the more if you don't, how's this? How deal with it? How, which sometimes, many times, is painful. That's why people like put it on the back burner and then try to forget, or actually sometimes forget, but
Mm-hmm.
it's there from
Exactly. Look
the
at what's her name? The late Olivia Newton-John. How many decades did she live with breast cancer? She
yes,
got it, she beat it. She got it, she beat it.
yes,
And her go-to was spirituality,
yes,
mind,
yes.
body. That was it.
But then you know what? I've never gone into her what her personal history was, if she did have any trauma earlier in her
Mm,
life.
right.
Okay, I've never gone that, but every time I heard about that, it was like there's something here she's beat, but there's something still left that's been like maybe
Yeah.
unresolved, or and I could go into one of my theories as far as what I found out with that, because I did used to do alternative hypnosis. It
Oh
wasn't
yeah.
just not just the stop smoking or weight loss, the stuff. I
Right.
I did a lot of other stuff that, like I said, people would come to me like or they thought it was a magic pill,
Right.
when
Oh yeah,
maybe they
definitely.
needed something more intensive because
Yeah.
their trauma was, or mental illness. Okay.
Oh, right. Yeah,
You know what I'm
definitely.
saying? That's
Yes, I
like,
totally do. Yeah.
you
I get
know,
into there's a wonderful author. His name is Dr. Edgar Burnett, and
okay.
he wrote the manual for rapid reintegration, which is a
Hmm.
form of hypnosis. And I've gone ahead and I studied it extensively, and I developed a type of guided meditation type of
Right.
hypnosis, but also people teaching people how to be able to do self-hypnosis as well, to
Yes.
be able to confront their ego and how to be able, because it's
That's
all
a
ego.
tough
Yeah,
one. That's
yeah,
a tough one.
yeah, ego state therapy. So I do a lot of that myself. Anytime I'm not feeling good or something comes up or anything like that, or I have a close
Yes.
friend or a family member, I can just look at somebody and bang, automatically I know exactly what's going on.
But yes, and I'm so glad you brought that up as far as when you were explaining that, and I want you to keep going with what we were talking about
Yes,
as what's been the prep for what's coming, what's being played out now. In other
yes,
words, everybody thinks this all started in 2019 or 2020, when in reality it goes back much further. And I
yes,
think only somebody that's been alive X amount of times,
right.
myself included, recognizes it, because we've been around to see the stages of it being played out.
Well, there's a playbook. Obviously, there's a playbook. Okay. Is
Okay.
there any coincidence that in 1917, I believe it was, we had the Spanish flu?
Yes.
19, and then nearly 100 years later. Now, I wanted you to know that I got sick with the COVID, even though
Mm-hmm.
there was no diagnosis for it, but I was sick with it back in 2019, I believe it was, maybe even before that. No, I think it was
Right.
before, it was 2018. Nobody talked about it. Nobody said, oh, whatever. All I know is that I was sick as a dog. I couldn't breathe. I should have been on a respirator. Nobody did anything.
Right.
They said, maybe you have a little bit of pneumonia. You have something.
Right.
And you know what? I couldn't get the doctors to be able to help me to figure out what the hell it was. Obviously, it was they would say, it's viral bronchitis, but I couldn't breathe.
Right.
Like this, how I'm talking to you right now. When I was doing the Rock Psychic, it's why I had taken a very long hiatus from the Rock Psychic show, and I couldn't talk the way I talk now. I would get winded. I would, yeah. So what I had to do is I had to take matters into my own hands, and I had to go take
Mm-hmm.
vocal lessons. I had to learn
Really.
how to sing in the process, but how to be able to open up those lungs and to be able to do the exercises and rebuild all of the chest muscles, because everything had atrophied while I was so ill. I had a cough that would frighten a child. I can't begin to tell you. It was very, 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 very bad. And and then sure enough, a year and a half later, but there's a playbook to all of this. And what we've been watching is it any surprise? Back then we had prohibition as well.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. The
And
Volstead
now,
Act.
and now they're working on being able to legalize marijuana, right? There's
Well,
all kinds of correlations going.
it, well, and see, this is the thing. When you look at the Volstead Act, it was around for like 13 years before they, cut it out. And of course, everybody hears about all these things about Al Capone and organized crime, and it did wonders, for these bootleggers. Because I'm going to tell you something, coming from South Florida and Bimini, you know, there was you could they that's what the rum runners, they would bring it into the coast and drop it off. A lot of people that made a lot of money. Now,
Right,
one thing
yeah.
that a lot of people, it's almost like one of these things where But when you look at the crime statistics for those times,
Right.
crime went down.
Oh
But then
yeah.
there's a part of people that say, hey, should the government be able to tell you not to do or take certain things? So it's a foot in each side.
Right.
And then now with this thing with marijuana, we fall into the same thing where should the government be allowed to dictate to you? But then you see that the THC does bind to the receptors in your brain, and not all for all people before somebody has a fit, but it
Yeah.
is sometimes a gateway drug for other things.
Depends on what's going on with the biochemistry. It's a great doctor who's been
Exactly.
studying a lot of like the mental illnesses, all different places of the brain
Yes.
and addiction. His name is Dr. Daniel Amen, Amen.
Okay.
Phenomenal, phenomenal
Right.
doctor. And this
So
is
it's like one of those things that it's like, I could see this not harming a certain person, and then other people, it's like, man, this is going to be bad because for whatever reason, the genetics, trauma, whatever
oh
it
yeah,
is, they,
untreated.
they, they latch onto it as a distraction.
Right.
But it's like, okay, but how can you differentiate? And
Yeah.
I don't know if you've heard that out in California, a lot of these dispensaries are having problems because they were being taxed and so many fees were being applied to them by the state that they're having a hard time staying open. So they're not paying their distributors, up the food chain. And of course, they're having to charge more. So
Right.
guess what? The people now are going back to buying to the guy in the corner,
Right. 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 That makes a lot of sense then.
because they didn't realize, I think, when they were trying that legalization idea, oh, this is going to be great, was that the
Mm-hmm.
state was going to, you know, they're going to fee for this and fee for that. And now you
Right.
got to do this. And it's like, you guys didn't think about that when you started thinking about it. So, yeah,
Yeah, they're
they've got
starting to
their own
do
things going
similar.
on.
Yeah, they're doing similar here in New York. They're running
Really?
everybody around. Oh, they're making people crazy. They had the beverage stores here. We have like we have liquor stores, but we also have like beer stores.
Right.
They're called beverage, and you buy your spritzers and whatever.
Uh
So
huh.
they started selling these THC spritzers, and
Okay.
the state said, "Go ahead, you can be licensed for it." But then they turned around, and they flipped it recently, and now there's all these lawsuits going against all of the distributors who were distributing the cans of the THC spritzer drinks. So that just happened like some weeks ago. So
Okay.
everybody's up in arms about it because they're like, well, first you said it was good and it was okay, and we're going to be able to legalize this, and now you're
Mm-hmm.
telling no, you can't. Only the dispensaries can be able to do. And this, I can't begin to tell you how many people are like, you know what? I'm going to go my own way. Thank you very much.
So what do you think? What do you think is the solution, Chicky? Do you think it's that government should prohibit it altogether, allow it? What do you think?
You know, at the end of the day, it's a money making business.
Of
And
course.
yeah, there's taxes and all these things where the states need to
Sure.
be able to make more money to clean up their imaginary debt. Oh, did I say that?
Yes, oh boy, so certainly you did.
Oh, my
But
bad.
it's only imaginary, right?
Yeah, it's just imaginary in the land of make believe.
Yes.
So,
Uh-huh.
uh, what are you going to do? So this is their excuse. It's going to be, it's like a mouse running in a wheel, or a hamster running in a
Right.
wheel. You're never going to get anywhere with it. It's all
Yeah.
this, it's a form of amusement to say the very least. And that's
Right. That's why they
basically,
say they ended the Volstead Act because the government said, you know what, we could be taxing all this liquor.
yeah, exactly.
Oh,
So really, does the government have a place in, the medicines that we take or the
yeah.
FDA or anything like that? At the end of the day, they believe there needs to be laws of the land. Why we started the original
Yes.
government with the Ten Commandments.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so how do you teach people to be moral and ethical? Of course,
Right.
eventually they're going to figure out, who's abusing, and
Sure.
eventually they'll go ahead and they'll crack down like they did with the alcohol. And they're going to say,
Mm-hmm.
all right, now you need to be able to go back. Originally here in New York, they said you had to go to a medical doctor to be able to get a card. And then you
Okay.
needed to take a prescription every time you wanted to
Mm-hmm.
be able to get that. Fine. That's all good, cool, and dandy. You want it regulated. But then they took that away and they said, well, now you don't need it. So I think what they're doing is they're testing the waters, and they want to be able to see how far people are going to go into the realm of addiction and kill themselves.
Yeah.
Because again, you got a little bit of a depopulation agenda going on too.
Sure,
That's
sure. And people don't
yeah.
realize exactly with the problems that we have with fentanyl.
Oh yeah.
Um, I'm not going to say there were circumstances, but about a couple of months ago, I was in a meeting where there was several judges
Right.
in attendance, and one of them pointed out that they've seen a drop in meth cases because fentanyl has taken over so much that nobody's doing meth as much as me anymore because of the fentanyl.
Yeah, it's scary. It's scary. Yeah.
Okay. And I heard that, I was like, holy crap,
Oh
you
my.
know? And that puts it in perspective, going
Yeah.
back to what you just said about the
Mm-hmm.
population, that you would think, man, doesn't anybody care? I mean, this is, this is like, this is wiping out sometimes parents, both parents, or
Right.
it's like, and it's like you said, it's not even a question because there's some people that are addicted for years to a certain drug. This
Right.
thing with the fentanyl will kill you very easily, even on the
Oh,
first try
yeah.
in some
Oh
cases.
yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, definitely. I've seen that happen with people with even marijuana. And now the
Yes.
newest thing in the medical industry is the ketamine. Is
Yes.
the ketamine, because they'll go ahead and they'll take patients that have mental illnesses or trauma or whatever, and they'll say, let's give you these controlled doses of ketamine, but you have to sign a disclosure because your mind might become fractured in the process.
Oh, it's like,
I beg your pardon?
right. And let's face it, how many fractured people then go on to like, I'm going to sue you, even though I did a waiver.
Yeah, you can't. There's nothing you can do. There's nothing.
No.
And there's all these lawsuits going on right now with regards to people who bought the THC spritzers and now they're cracking down on it. It's the same thing. Remember all the people were doing the vapes? They thought it was
Yes.
cool. And then they all got banned.
Right.
But
And
now
then, well, and,
somehow,
and see, this is the thing I heard, because you would see people, and then you heard about some people having really bad effects from the vaping,
right.
and
Oh
it's
yeah.
and it's like, okay, all right, for those people that thought I don't have to give up smoking, I'll just vape instead. It's like, come on,
Well,
you're still
that's what
putting
they're
something in your
doing.
lungs.
I know. Know what they're doing now is that all the dispensaries now, they're pushing the vapes,
Of course,
the
of
THC
course.
vapes. I says, what are you doing? You're going to crystallize people's lungs. So what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing? And then these people are wondering why they have a higher instance of bronchial pneumonia
Sure.
and bronchitis and all these other uglies.
Mm-hmm.
What do you? Then you got people who have had COVID that try to vape, and next thing you know, their lungs collapse.
Yes. And yeah, that's right there. That's a comorbidity. That's it. That'll
Yeah,
do you, especially
yeah,
the way it does to the lungs.
sure.
Um, yeah, even if you're young, in other words,
Yes,
because you always heard, the comorbidity either for people that were overweight or they were very elderly, and it's like, hey, nowadays you could be young and be comorbid, like you said, because you're vaping like a mad person.
yes.
Because hey, I'm not smoking. It's like, and the reason why I know this is I think I've heard every excuse under the sun for the smoking thing,
Hmm.
especially when
Yeah.
I used to work with people that were like smokers of 2, 3 packs a day,
Oh
you
God.
know,
Oh,
and it was like, and believe it or not, people identified this is their identity. When to see themselves as a non-smoker, it was the equivalent of I'm going to strip away your identity. So that
oh,
was why, you work behind the scenes with a subconscious mind. But
yes.
yeah, but in this case, and little by little, and I don't know if they have that in New York where it's been around for some years where certain jobs they would say you can't use tobacco. In other words,
Wow.
here in Florida, they had especially a lot of county and state jobs.
Yeah.
They would say you can't be a tobacco user to apply.
Really?
Yep.
Wow. I mean, I know there's been
Yes.
a severe drop in tobacco use because they raised the
Yes,
price
but
of the
let me tell you something.
combo.
That's been around maybe for about 15 years. Okay.
Wow.
Yes. In other words, the more plum jobs,
Yeah.
they would kind of put that caveat, we're gonna, no criminal background, no this, no that, and by the way, you cannot use tobacco products. And
Well,
I was like,
tobacco is a drug. It is. Look at all the other chemicals that are it's
well, I
laced
think
with.
also a lot of a lot of employers now look at it, and I hate to say it because this is what it boils down to, your statistic, as in, are you going to get sick? Are you going to be a drag on our especially if this is like I said, a county job or a city job or a state job or something with an agency where you get vested and basically um, short of you committing murder, it's very difficult to fire you. So they're always looking down the road. Are you going
Yes.
to develop health problems
Right.
because
Yeah, that's true.
now you're young and you're smoking, but maybe 15 years from now,
Right.
you could develop all, which by the way, I think is a problem as well. I'm not saying okay. I mean, I
Mhm.
think you should not smoke because it's bad for your health, but
Of course, yes.
people don't realize sometimes where a lot of these companies always look at the statistics
Okay.
down the road. Even though nowadays many people they switch around jobs, but if
Yes.
they tend to keep much of their labor force
Yeah.
because people want that retirement, that payoff, they always
Hmm.
look down the road as in, are you going to be sick? And then
Oh
we're going
yeah.
to have to pay for you.
Yeah. What kind of investment are you?
And
Yes.
they try to manage it even from the point of when they accept people in.
Right. 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 Yeah, it's true. It is very true. Yeah.
And then, we get into, of course, all the HIPAA disclosures and how much, and, because I don't know about nowadays, they have the teledoc and how much of our medical history is really open to prying eyes. How's that?
Oh yeah. This is true.
And that's why it's good to go to somebody like you, which is you're not tied into the big pharma or medical establishment. And that's another thing.
Mhm.
I don't know in New York, but over here, all the hospitals are being bought out by these hospital systems.
Yes. It's
You
happening
know,
here. It is. It's been happening. Yes.
and even the individual doctors' offices, before these doctors would have their own individual offices, and maybe they had one or two partners, but it was
Right.
a self-sufficient office, doctor's office.
Yes.
They themselves are being bought out. My point being that it becomes what's the word I'm looking for? Like the Borg of
Okay.
medical.
Yeah, like a
Um,
monopoly. I know it. Yeah.
they're
I get
being,
it.
it's all feeding the same. It all ends up in the same
Okay.
umbrella.
I have a prediction for that.
Go for it. Let's hear it.
Oh, your listeners, your watchers are not going to like this in the least. Okay.
Mm,
So, this is a reading that I did a couple of weeks ago,
all right.
and it has a lot to do with what happened, unfortunately, during COVID. And they went ahead and they pushed forward these emergency authorizations for these pharmaceutical companies. Some of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world got authorization. However, there are going to be lawsuits in the future. And the government is even going to get in on those lawsuits, going, well, we trusted you. We,
Okay.
we,
Yeah.
we, we we thought that you did the research and the work to be able to
Right.
manage your clinicals. Okay. You mismanaged your clinicals, but they were set up to fail. Now, the
Okay.
pharmaceutical companies, anybody who's listening to this within the sound of my voice, I'm going to give you a gotcha. Okay. Because what's going to happen is the government is going to absorb the pharmaceutical companies. We're already seeing it happening in New York, because here in New York,
Really.
for patients that are on Medicaid,
Mm-hmm.
the managed care companies like your I don't even want to call it Blue Cross. It's called Highmark here in New York, because
Okay.
Blue Cross Blue Shield is not what it used to be when you and I were growing up.
Sure.
Now there are all these subsidiary companies and they go under the blanket of Blue Cross, but it's not really Blue Cross. It's
Mm-hmm.
some other company. It's just using the familiar name. So what I see is going to end up happening, and like they're happening now, is the states are divesting from the pharmaceutical companies, and also a lot of the drugstores are going out of business, like your CVS, your Walgreens,
Really.
your Rite Aid, all of these different stores. They're all closing. They're losing their government. At first, they lost contract with all the managed care companies. Okay, the like your Blue Crosses, your Fidelises, your Cordovias, whatever it is, right?
Right.
Whatever it is. So now what's happening in New York is that New York State is now paying for Medicaid recipients pharmaceuticals. So let's just say you need to get a penicillin or something like that. You're going to go to the
Right.
pharmacy. You're going to be able to give them your standard, I guess your standard benefits card, if you will, but
Right.
not your Blue Cross card or your Fidelis card,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is. Instead, you're giving them your regular card, okay, and it's going to have an RX bin number on it. The state
Okay.
is going to pay. States are now paying for it. So what's happening is eventually all your pharmaceutical companies are going to get absorbed by the government. So you think in terms of what they're doing in Canada with socialist medicine.
Yes.
Okay. This is where it's going, but this is how it's happening. It's happening in phases instead. You can mark
And
my
you know
word.
what? I know there's a lot of people that think, oh, this is great. This will drive down the price of my medications, especially if you have a lot of medications. But people remember there was a bunch of medications like now, especially during this COVID, where you could not get it. You
Yeah,
couldn't, okay, you guys be quiet. You couldn't pay. In other words, your doctors didn't want to or were afraid to prescribe it to you,
that's right.
you, and you couldn't get it. In other words, you couldn't tell you, I want it,
Mhm.
whatever. Unless you knew some pharmacist that had a little mom and pop pharmacy,
Right.
okay, that you said, "Hey, give me some what was the horse paste thing? I forget what the name of the damn thing is. But anyway,
Ivermectin.
ivermectin, or some whatever, or the quinine, that
Yeah.
was like that's been around forever for malaria.
Yes.
You went to your doctor, you went to, like you said, the regular pharmacies. Nope, 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 nope. So for people that think that this is a great idea because of maybe they're looking that they spend a lot of money,
Mhm. Yeah.
there's a flip side to it because basically they control the spigot of what
Hmm.
medications you're allowed to get or
That
allowed to
is,
use.
yeah. Well, that'll be covered. That's the key because I'm watching it happen when I'm at the pharmacy and
Okay.
I have to be able to go buy something. I see somebody getting in line in front of me, and he'll say, "Well, I want this medication. We're sorry, your insurance doesn't cover it." He says, "Well, I still need it. How much is it?" It's $500, and the guy gives the credit card
Right. And
because
let's face it, but
yeah,
how many people, especially if it's a type of medication that you need to take continuously,
yes,
okay, not a one shot deal or something, I'm sick and I'm going to take this for 1 or 2, like an antibiotic, whatever. If it's
right,
something that you need to taking maybe until you die,
yeah,
who can afford to do that?
okay.
And
So
especially if you've got more than one medication that you need to take.
yeah, as a well-being coach and somebody who's been down this road with many of my clients before, because I
Uh-huh.
do work on interdisciplinary teams. So I'm a
Okay.
part of an integral part of a person's managed care team. So there are programs that everybody needs to be able to know, like Good RX is one of them. And what they'll do is
Right.
they'll give you a bin code and you can type it in, get me a coupon code for,
Yeah, I've seen those. I've seen those. Yeah.
amitriptyline or whatever it is, right?
Uh-huh.
And there's 100 of them, and you just look for your pharmacy and then say, all right, how much, what's the negotiated price between XYZ coupon code company and
Mm-hmm.
this particular pharmacy? And sometimes you'll see it's for $30, sometimes you'll see it for $15, but it's better than paying 500.
Oh, absolutely. Sure. And it's
So
incredible that there could be such a price difference.
yes, definitely, definitely. But it's a markup. Everybody's got to be able to make a profit in this capitalistic
What do
society.
you
Not
think
that
is the
anybody's against it, but
well, what do you think? And I think a lot of people, that's one of the byproducts of this COVID thing was a lot of people became aware that a lot of these medications are sourced out of China or India. And
yes,
a lot of people went, huh? Either the drug itself or ingredients, even if it's manufactured here,
right,
it's manufactured. And like I said, if it's an on and off thing, but if you're one of these persons that has a certain medication that you need to take,
right.
I'm sure there's people that are thinking, oh my God, okay, what happens if something, you know, there's a backup on, supplying this, which is also when you step in, I would think as far as what can you do on a body, spirit, mind connection. I don't want to say to offset the need because I know there's medications that sometimes are needed no matter
Yeah.
what.
Well, yeah. All right. Let's use a perfect example. Okay. Thyroid.
Yes,
Perfect. How many people do we know in our circles who have a thyroid condition, a thyroiditis, whether it's a Graves or it's a Hashimoto's?
yes,
Okay. You're going to have overactive or underactive. It's very, 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 very common here in America
yes.
because our diet is poor in iodine.
Hmm.
Now, there's more to it. Now, we would think that what we eat is going to be able to affect our body, but there are studies coming out of the NIH, and you guys can be able to research this yourselves too, that spinal dysfunction, that's all it takes. You fall on the ice once when you're a kid. That's it.
Really,
And
that is so.
further, and yeah, that's what it takes. And there's spinal dysfunction that can cause this whole thyroid thingamabob to go bad. You could have chronic sinus issues as well.
Okay.
Yeah, and all it is physical therapy. That's all it is. It's physical therapy, being able to take excellent care of your body. Your body is your temple. Keep your weight minimally down as best as you possibly can without putting yourself into starvation mode or being what I like to be able to refer to as the accidental anorexic, where you're just not eating the minimum of 1,200 calories in a day.
Yeah. Yeah.
People think I need to lose weight. I'm not able to lose weight. And you
Yeah.
go, it's because you're not eating at least 1,200 calories in a day. You're not eating enough. So you're the accidental anorexic. But that also can be able to play a contributing factor to the overall well-being as well. And these are all little lifestyle things that
Let
we,
me ask you something. That thing of the spinal cord,
yes.
are we talking here where some nerve up the vertebrae has been squeezed or and it reflected up
Yeah,
here?
you could even have like a little bit of a bulging disc or something, and it just hitting the
Mm-hmm.
nerve just right. People get acid reflux. Okay.
Yes, I've heard of that.
Yeah.
And you always
That's
think
your
of
vagus
it's
nerve. That's your vagus nerve acting up, or
really
yeah, because for whatever reason, maybe it's knocking out some inflammation. You eat some capsaicin, you eat some spicy hot peppers, and people are like, oh, I can't eat that. It's too hot in my stomach. It's giving me acid reflux. That's not the case at all. What it's doing is the capsaicin in the hot peppers is reducing the amount of overall inflammation in your body, and now
okay.
your vagus nerve is getting aggravated because originally there was inflammation that was keeping something off of your vagus nerve. And then people are like, why do I
Okay.
keep getting waves of nausea when I'm having this acid reflux? It's from spasmatic. You're having spasms.
Okay.
Yeah. And
That
it's
is
the same thing with
so,
the sinuses. People are like, my allergies are going nuts. I can't stop. I got a postnasal drip or
yeah.
sneezing, continue. Again, that's dealing with stuff that's in your neck. People get spasms in their face, like under their eyes. Oh, I
Yes.
must be tired. So rotate your neck. Go all the way around. Go all the way around. Stretch out that lower back, your upper back. Do your exercises, stretch it, get all those knots working out. Sit on a heating pad every day if you need to. Get that all worked out, and you're gonna watch magically it goes away.
Let me ask you, Chicky, do you do anything with the body's fascia? Because I've heard sometimes.
Yes.
Talk about that.
Okay. The body's fascia, a lot of times women will get cellulite. Okay.
Hmm.
Because what ends up happening is the fascia becomes too tight. Okay. It happens from dehydration. A number of different factors will be able to play a role in it. Also, not having good muscle tone, also. So something
Okay.
has to keep the mechanisms together. Now, a lot of people that may be medical doctors or people that might be physical therapists are going to say, "This chick, she's full of bunk. She doesn't know what she's talking about." Now, I'm not talking Western medicine here. Okay.
Right.
I'm going to talk about what I've seen with my clients. I'm going to talk about what I've seen with myself. I've been in automobile accidents. I've experienced everything. I myself even have cellulite. I'm working on being able to break it down. Okay.
Okay.
Now, what ends up happening is something has to keep all of your structures together. Your fascia saves your life. Your fascia gets sticky and it holds everything together when you don't have good muscle tone. And
Right.
this happens a lot to older women. I speak from personal experience with the underarms or wherever
Yeah.
it's going to get saggy. Okay.
Yeah.
What ends up happening with this is that you have to be able to break it apart. How do you be able to break it apart? You need to be able to, number one, you need to be able to exercise and you need to build up your muscle tone while being able to make sure you're getting your 1,300 calories, even
Right.
though you're burning it off while you're exercising. So it requires you to eat a little bit more. And people are like, I'm eating too much. Again, us women, we're all conditioned to be these accidental anorexics. So the body goes into this starvation mode. The first thing it's going to do is grab from the muscle, not from the fat. And that's a fact.
Hmm.
So, how to be able to break apart the fascia so that way you can start being able to get deeper into the muscle and the mechanisms. I have to forewarn
Right.
you. If you could do things like ultrasound therapy, you can get, and I've done experiments with it. Ultrasound therapy will break apart fatty deposits. Some people get lipomas, like little bumps under the skin of fatty deposits, right?
Hmm.
Whatever it may be. And you can go ahead, you can break apart your fascia, but I'm going to warn you right now. If you break apart your sticky fascia, where all of you people go for cool sculpting as well, this is really,
Yes.
really bad because what ends up happening is suddenly you start getting all these back issues, you start getting neck issues, because your structure, your fascia was holding everything together, even though you have poor muscle tone,
Hmm.
and then everything goes to hell. And then you got to start all, and then you realize, oh, I got to go for physical therapy. I got to start working out. I got to push past the pain. What is going on? I'm doing all these anti-inflammatories. I can't get out of pain. It's because there's not enough muscle to be able to hold the structure together. And again, as us accidental anorexics, and also poor diet, you got to watch out also, because there's a lot of things that contribute to it hormonally as well,
Sure.
especially with women. Men also, okay.
Hmm.
All of this with the soy. They've been on a soy kick for decades.
Oh my God, yes. I
Poison.
remember, and it was like soy is the best thing since sliced
No,
bread. Yeah, I know,
no,
I know. Now it's
no.
everybody's coming
Oh,
around, but yeah,
no, no, because it sends your hormones out of balance. It takes you away
yes,
from your natural being. And they say, oh, yeah, 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 it's great. It's great. No, it's not great. It's poison. It's
right.
toxic. And you hear a lot of
Let
years
me tell you something.
ago.
That's why I think a lot myself personally.
Yeah,
Now I'm very cautious when they say, "Oh, this whatever it is XYZ is
yeah,
really good for you." It's like,
yeah,
wait a minute. I've heard
yeah,
this. I've heard this before.
yeah.
That's usually how they bring it in. This alternative. Like let's say soy. Cow
Oh,
milk is bad. Drink some soy and it's going to do this for you, or
no,
soy this, soy that, soy.
no.
And then later on, 10 years later, well, studies have found, and it's like, oh, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
what
It's crazy stuff. You ever
it's
bite into a soybean or an edamame, and I was like,
oh my God, no. I tried that a couple of times and it's like, oh, this is not working. Nope,
hard
nope, nope.
pass. No.
What do you and I know that sometimes people talk a lot about fasting, all right?
Oh,
But you got to be really
no.
careful with the fasting because
Yeah, you could, again, the accidental anorexic, it happens to men and women. And
mhm,
again, if your body is starving, okay, the first place, it is always going to pull from. And people don't want to listen to logic, okay? This has been something that's been going on for years, okay? That they say, oh yeah, yeah, you fast, you don't eat or whatever, you be like you are in nature or whatever. But you know, what did we do when we were cavemen? We didn't eat every day. Oh, malarkey, you're going to eat something. You're going to eat some
yeah,
wild
something. You
meat or
scrounge
something.
something up.
Yeah, you scrounge something up. You're hungry.
Mhm.
So now you've got all of this, research, if you will, if you want to call it even that, being able to tell us, oh, fasting is really good. It does wonderful things for the body. But the thing is they're not getting their 1,200 calories, their 1,300
Right.
calories. They're not doing it. And you're destroying your muscle mass in your body. And you wonder, these people that are in their 20s, they're like, oh, I got to stay thin. That's BS. Okay. You want to be toned. You want to be in good shape.
Right.
That's the thing.
Sure.
But you can't be denying your body food for days. Otherwise, you're going to go into starvation mode. It's going
No,
to open
no.
the
I think
muscles
that
up.
there's I don't know what they call it, where like, you could do what they say, like, let's say overnight. That let's say, for example, like you ate at 7 p.m.
Right.
dinner, and then obviously, unless you get up and have a midnight snack, but otherwise, let's say while you sleep, and then you try to go beyond the 7 a.m. marker or 12-hour marker, where you
Mm-hmm.
haven't eaten anything. It's like a mini fast kind of deal. That I think
Mm-hmm.
is safer than, like you said, where I'm gonna see
Mm-hmm.
how far can I carry this without,
Mm-hmm.
like, you
Not good.
know,
No, it's
you
not good.
know,
I mean, even have a cup of sugar water, put something
yes,
glycemic to keep your levels up, because what ends up happening is your body can only withstand so much abuse. And what ends up
hmm,
happening is you will inadvertently be able to develop a hypoglycemia or a diabetes. Something is going to happen in your endocrine system when you get older. Your body's going to say, oh, you like to abuse me? Let me teach you a lesson in how to be abused.
I'm gonna have the last word. I'm gonna have the last word on this.
We're gonna
Watch.
have the last one on this one. You're gonna eat something. Yeah, go get that sandwich.
Well, yeah, it's yeah
Yeah,
that you get those cravings where it's like good luck
yeah,
on on denying yourself. Yeah, it's like,
yeah.
and of course, I'm sure you've heard that food pyramid was a little bit skewed off as far as with
Variety is okay. It meant to be for variety, but even right now, there even Weight Watchers. Back in the day, they would say, "Oh, if you got a craving, just have something for taste. Just
hmm,
put one, just have willpower, and you
right,
keep eating about one chocolate. Fine, eat a square of chocolate, and that's it. Be done with it." But now they're teaching all of this low carb thing, which is instant
right,
gratification. And don't get me
right.
wrong, when I in my younger years, I did low carb, and you know what? I pay for it now. I pay for it now.
Well,
Yeah, I
yeah,
did damage
it's
to my body.
well, this is why I think, and I was, they do all these studies on all these different types of diets, fads, whether it's high carb, low carb, high protein, whatever. And
Right.
they say that really what they, yeah, you'll have people that will drop X amount of weight, sometimes fantastic amount of weights. But
Right.
then they say that you need to do long-term studies on how long were they able to keep the weight off. In other words,
Right.
okay, you dropped all this weight and that's great. But what happened a year later? What happened 2 years later? What happened 3 years later?
Hmm.
Were you able to keep it off, or the whatever eating habits that you started, were you able to maintain it, or did you finally go, I can't take this anymore?
Yeah.
And I remember one time when I was at work, this is when, the Atkins diet came out,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
which was, very low at the beginning. It was like no carbs, almost,
Right.
whatever. And
Remember?
and I saw a bunch of people, a couple of people that dropped weight, but this was around the time where you would work years for the same people, and
Yeah.
inevitably it
Yeah.
crept back.
Oh, of course, you got to change the behavior. You got to change and your attitude towards food.
Yes.
A lot of times we're like, oh, this is all over. Maybe I'll just have a little bit for taste, and next thing you know, you eat a whole plate of pasta, and
Yeah.
that's your only thing. But the key is and pasta is a processed food. I know a lot of people don't like it, but now there's a thing that says eat clean, and it's right
Right.
because the caveman, right? What would the caveman? He
Right.
would
The
fruit and vegetables.
paleo diet kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. You can eat your meat and your vegetables. I guarantee you, you get your 1,200 calories, 1,300 calories, and you go ahead and you have your meat and your vegetables, you eat some fruit, your variety or whatever, and don't eat processed food. If a machine contributed to being able
Right.
to make the food, don't touch it. Don't touch
And
it
it's
at
and
all.
it's and it, unfortunately that's the stuff that sometimes tastes really good. That's the
Yeah. It's unfortunate. It is. It tastes really good because it has a high sugar content and sugar's highly addictive. We were talking about addiction earlier, and there's a lot of people out there. I
yeah.
want to mention also that they're like, well, how can I afford, even buying a salad costs $10. It's so funny.
Yeah.
I'm a reverend, okay, and I took a vow of poverty. So
Okay.
I at this time I'm not even, I'm not doing a lot of work right now post COVID. Unfortunately, a lot of my clients had passed away during COVID.
Really.
COVID got, yeah, I
Okay.
lost a very large amount of my client base and may their souls rest in peace. So I am now doing a lot of community work.
Okay.
I'll do my spiritual retreats. I'll do psychic readings here and there. I run napping when I can. But the thing is also is that a lot of people cannot afford to be able to buy salad things, buy fruits
Sure.
and fresh vegetables and all of
Yes.
that. And a lot of people are having a very hard time being able to get by. So I would encourage them to be able to visit their local food pantry. And if you
Hmm.
think that you're earning too much money, that's okay. You're allowed to earn money. But if you're having a hard time getting and affording the things that you need in order to be able to attain optimal health, then you are allowed to go to the food pantry. A lot of them will do an income verification and they'll say, oh, you need a little bit. Okay, you can come once a month, you
Sure.
know, and that's fine. They'll give you what you need. And it's so funny because even I myself, I go to the food pantry. And when I go to the food pantry, the supermarket, the finest supermarket in the area gives to the food pantry.
Yes.
And they give you about maybe this big a plate, and it's filled with salad, with a chicken salad or a chef
Hmm.
salad or something. They have the nerve to charge $10 for that salad. That's a
I
death.
believe it. I believe it. I
Horrible.
believe it.
Yeah. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm getting it for free because obviously, I've taken a
Well,
vow.
no, the people don't understand that a lot of the contributions
Right.
to these food pantries, they come from restaurants, stuff that sometimes they're not going to use. You're not,
Right.
they have X amount of space.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And sometimes you got, and one time, this was a couple of years ago, I had a lot of people working on my property, and they needed it, and I would go. It was a combination of the church and they would give out, and it was varied. You never knew it was, and I would load up and I would bring stuff over here to the people where I worked with that were here. That hey, you Steve, and it was sometimes it was great stuff, and other times it was like, hey,
Oh, of course.
sorry, you
Right.
know. But
Yeah.
most of the time, and some of the stuff it was like, okay, now I know why this didn't sell in there, in the
Hmm.
supermarket. Um, but I know that some people feel bad, but it's like, you know what? Fortunately, we live in a country where there is a lot of food.
There
It's
is.
just getting it into the hands of the people. I mean,
Right.
versus these restaurants or these stores throwing them out in the
Yeah. And
garbage.
yeah. And there's greed. There's a lot of greed. How
Oh
could you
yeah, of
charge
course there
$10
is.
for a salad? It's preposterous.
Oh
You
no,
know?
I know that. I know. I mean, you can go in any little like salad tub. Before you used to
Yeah.
go for a couple of bucks. Now
Hmm.
it's, and I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah,
I
it's
have a
phenomenal.
farmer's market around the corner from me because I live in
Oh
an
yeah.
agricultural rural area,
Yes.
and I go buy from them. And yeah, there's stuff, if you don't eat it, it spoils because it doesn't have
Yes.
all of
Yes.
these other chemicals and stuff that you get from
Right.
when you buy it.
Yeah.
So in other words, you got to go there either on a daily basis or every other day and get it
Right.
fresh, but it's worth
Hmm.
it. Plus,
Oh
the
yeah.
price is a lot lower.
Right.
Hey,
Yes,
you guys.
definitely. I think that also, I don't know if they're doing it in all the states, but you can inquire about it for all of your watchers and listeners. A lot of these states are now offering a double up. So if you come in with food stamps or you're on some kind of WIC program or something like that, you can go to your food pantries, not the food pantries, the farmers market, excuse me. And you can be able to say, oh, I take $20 off of my card, and they'll give you $40 in farmers market coins, tokens, because you
That would be
pay for
great.
everything in farmers market coins, tokens, or
That
whatever.
would be, that's a
And they
fantastic
double
idea.
up. They're doing that here in New York State, and God bless them for that, because that it makes it
Of
all well
course.
worth it. You go home,
Sure.
and your car's full. Your car is full for $20, and it
Right. In
turns
other
out,
words, yeah, you have to cook it. Maybe it's not microwavable, but who cares, right? You have
oh
to actually
yeah,
cook the food.
yeah, people they think they're, so I don't know how to cook. You go ahead, you go to Goodwill, you get yourself a Pyrex container for $2, and
Yeah.
you go ahead and you get your broccoli, and you want to be able to make broccoli and cheese. Go ahead and put a little bit of water in that pot, and cover it, and then put it into your microwave, and microwave it for several minutes, and you've got steamed broccoli. You add some cheese
Well,
to it,
and let me
you're
tell
good
you,
to go.
nowadays, YouTube it. There's always a million how-to
Right?
whatever in
Yes.
YouTube.
Yes.
If you get stuck, like, man, I don't know how I'm going to make this whatever that is.
Yeah. Exactly.
There's
Yeah.
always a way to figure it out. There's some type of video out there, some video source to help you out.
Oh
But
yeah.
yeah, people have to think outside of the box, Chicky. And
Mhm.
as
Yeah.
far as I know, you saw that, or you mentioned earlier about predictions. Or do you think? Let me tell you something. I tell everybody, if anybody, and the reason why this date is significant for me is my mom passed away in December of
Oh,
2019.
I'm
Okay,
sorry.
my
My
mom was in her
condolences.
90s. So you
Oh, I'm
understand what I'm
sorry.
saying?
Yes.
It's expected. This is the way it
Yeah.
should be,
Yes. I'm so
But the
sorry.
reason why that stands out is because of that date. That's why. If
Yeah.
anybody would have told me right after my mom's death,
Right.
which by the way, I'm gonna intercede here. In a way, I'm glad she died because I think that if I would not have been able to go see her in
Hmm.
the nursing home where I had her, I would have beat somebody up.
Yeah. 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 It's
I would have beat
understandable. Right.
somebody up.
Of course.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm the only child, and it was like I'm gonna go see my mother.
Okay.
Even though I was, that kind of deal. Even though sometimes
Yeah.
she was a little bit out of it, but still, if anybody would have told me back then what was gonna happen the following 3 years, I'd be like, oh come on, sure.
Oh, wow.
And as far as what happens society wise, everything. Do you think we're going on a downward slope, or what do you feel, or if you've done a
Change. New.
reading?
We're moving into a new age.
I don't know. Is that good or bad? I don't know because if you go by the new age stuff, it's very
Not in that sense,
ah
not in a spiritual new age, but in new age, like an industrial revolution we went through, right? So now we are going through a technological revolution, if you will. Look at with the birth of AI, all of these things are changing. Now we have Web3 happening. We have digital currencies. Uh, you
that's a
know,
scary thought.
all of our money is going away. Actual cash is being pulled out of circulation.
Yes,
And people are starting to hoard cash as well, which is another problem. But I think that a lot of what we know, even right now, everything is computers, 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 and you
sure.
can resist as much as you want. But you're now a part of the digital world.
Yes.
So if you have a cell phone and you don't want to download the apps, they make it very difficult for you. You have to download the apps.
Hmm.
If you don't accept the phishing cookie from your local bank, you get an ad on your computer from your antivirus. Oh, there's phishing on your bank website. And
Right.
even I experienced that. And I go, what is this? Has your site been compromised? Oh, no, no, that's normal. You can, if you don't want that, you can just be able to just go to the branch and sign up. You know, so
Right.
it's like, wow, you have no
And
choice.
you don't, and unless you know to ask the question,
Right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. There is a lot of automation that's happening with AI and with bots as well.
Sure.
And it was funny. I was on nextdoor.com. There was a gentleman who is a professional contractor. He says, I can't, he's like, I'm getting really annoyed because, people will send me private messages and
Hmm.
they'll go ahead and they'll not answer me when I start to engage them. And I had to be able to break the bad news to him. I says, "The most likely it's a bot. They're
Sure.
harvesting your IP address. They want to know what you're doing. Are you paying your taxes? How much work are you generating?" And they'll get right into your network.
Sure.
People think, "Oh, my network's not hackable. I got a strong password." It doesn't exist anymore. It
Right.
doesn't exist.
Exactly.
Everybody, you could have stuff saved and unless you go ahead and you take a jump drive or you take an external hard drive and you unplug
Yeah.
it
Put it
from
on
your
a thumb drive
computer.
or yeah,
Yeah,
or an
yeah.
external hard drive. Yeah.
Yep, we'll keep your computer off of the internet, turn it
Which
off
is
when you're
kind of
not
difficult
using
to
it.
do because everything is.
Mhm.
Um,
On
and
the
they've kind of
internet.
driven us do that to that. Like when we couldn't leave, it was like, okay, I have to bank online because I can't go in person. And I
Mhm.
don't know, even that banking, a lot of branches have downsized
Yeah, yeah,
to
it's all
where,
going online. Yeah, because the money's being pulled out of circulation. That a lot of the banks, if you notice, a lot of banks are collapsing. They're going
yes,
bye-bye. Yep.
yes,
Yeah,
exactly. And
yeah,
there's a lot of them that are if they haven't, if you ever looked at their financials,
yes.
it's be like, hey, how do you even, okay, you're about to go under.
Yeah, you can watch the
Um,
stock market. Go ahead and whatever bank you're with, look up their stock price of all the banks in your neighborhood, and you're going to go, why
yeah.
is this bank valued at over $100? The other one is worth $5. Who's
I
going
jumped a
bye
long
bye?
time ago. I went to credit unions. I went to
Yeah,
local credit unions, even though it's
credit unions are being removed as an equation. The credit
sure,
unions and what are the other ones called? Like the community savings banks and everything.
yes,
They're hiring hackers and bots and all of that to be able to go in and compromise the security of all the accounts.
yeah,
So that way there are fewer deposits with those places. I just watched it happen to a community credit union here in my county, and they went
hmm.
ahead and they attacked every single account in that bank. Okay.
Are you
And
serious?
I can't make that up. And they went ahead and they put podcast charges, like a dozen podcast charges, onto everybody's account. And then
And
I thought,
everybody just went wild and said, "Oh my God."
I'm out of here. You guys have been compromised. And then the bank tried to be able to say, they said, oh, well, they just got it, through the random debit card numbers. And I said to myself, well, that's a blasted lie, because what bank in their right mind is going to be able to provide sequential bank card
Exactly.
numbers to all the customers? It's randomized. Okay. So this was something that was set up, and now the bank is going to, unfortunately, it's going to fold eventually. But this is what the government is doing, because they want to take the cash out of circulation. They want everything
Well,
to go
you know
digital.
what? Again, I'm going to go back to when you've been alive for X amount of time.
Yeah.
There was once upon a time that, let's say at work, you could either get a check.
Yes.
Originally, that's what you would get, a check.
Right.
And then when they started doing that automatic deposit, you could pick, okay, you want a physical check or you would do a direct deposit.
Right.
Then it gets to the point, believe it or not, that a lot of these employers are like direct deposit or direct deposit. In other
Yes.
words, there is no more physical
Right.
check.
Yes. And
It's,
they're giving you those little cards. They'll give you those little
yeah,
chip card things. If you don't have it, they'll open an account
right.
for you, like a Payoneer or something like
Yeah,
that.
or something. It's something, but you're not going to get, as far as like what you were saying about, you're going to have physical money in your hand that you could go and cash it and get
Hmm.
the physical money.
Yes. Yes, definitely. And the other thing is the interest rates for all of the cloud banks.
Yes,
Like you've got your bank of what is that there? I'm trying to remember the name. There's Capital One. There's Capital One is one of them.
right.
American Express is another one. There's a number of them with phenomenal savings account rates. It's upwards of 5%.
Oh
It's
yeah,
really
they're going to try to lure you in to like get
going to
your
lure
money
you
in
and
there.
hold on to your cash. Exactly, exactly. And it's
Well,
like,
and
ooh,
this is, once upon a time, I'm going to say, um, people did, people wouldn't worry about that because it'd be like, my money's like, that's the bank. But there's been places where the bank has closed its doors or
yes,
limit the amount of cash, even though you might have it, they'll say, nah, Yeah, you might have 10,000, but we're only going to allow you to take out 500. Sorry. What are you going to
Yes.
do?
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's not even five. That's from the ATMs, I think. That's where they
Right.
set the limits. But you can go physically into a bank, okay, and you need to give them 72 hours to be
Right.
able to get that into their vault. So let's just say you want to go in, you want to take out, say, 20,000 or 50,000 or whatever it is from your savings. They'll go ahead and they'll say, "We're sorry, we don't have that in the vault right now. We have to order it."
Right. That, everybody always
Register
thinks
it.
that the banks, like, you see these movies of
Yes.
the big vaults full of money.
Yeah. Right.
And let me
It's
tell you
not like
something, I
that.
wouldn't put, how people also would store their stuff, their valuables, or even money in safe deposit boxes in the bank?
Right. Yeah.
That to me is like not a viable option anymore.
It's not. It's totally not because these banks are disappearing. What happens to all your possessions?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to go down the route again of the bank closes its doors for whatever reason. It could be anything. It could be they got, like you said, they got hacked and they said, hey, we got to close our doors because right now we can't operate because of course their systems run on computers. All right.
Yes.
So if somebody's hacked them or they've had a problem with their compromised, guess what? They're going to close their doors.
Right.
And sorry, we can't because until we figure this out or whatever.
Yes, exactly. I just saw an article. It wasn't on the Fool because I do read a lot of the financial websites, and
Okay.
it was another one of the financial websites. I can't remember which one it is, but it's a very well known and respected one. And the author of the article had written and said back in like the 1920s or something like that, the government went and seized like people's gold. They
Yes.
seized it and they just took it with it, and you had
What was
no
it, like the
recourse.
1930s? Was that it? What you were
I,
talking
I don't
about?
I don't remember the article. I just know that the article
Right.
cemented sometime around that, and they said they went back and they seized everybody's gold and people had to take the hit. They had to take the loss. Sorry, the government's seizing this. It's ours now. Okay, like we're taking it. Same thing they do with our land, right? You don't go ahead, you buy your house, you pay your
Hmm.
mortgage, but if you miss your taxes, they
That's right.
foreclose and they take it. Okay. So now this author was saying, well, once upon a time, they went and they seized our gold. Can they do that to our money? And the answer is yes. We
Yes.
watched it happen during COVID in Canada when the
Yes.
truckers were driving across Canada, and all of these people within the United States and Canada were sending money to be able to fight the good fight, and they had their bank accounts seized and their money taken from them. They
Frozen.
could
It was
frozen.
frozen.
Yeah, it was frozen and it was
Which is the
seized.
equivalent of taken. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. It was taken and it was never returned to them. So, can this really happen in this day and age? Yes. Do I predict that something like this is going to end up happening in the near future? Yes, I do predict this is going to happen. Does this mean you need to be able to run out and be able to pull your money from the bank? No, but have a plan.
Let me
Have
tell
a
you something. You
plan.
know when I had a taste of that? This was a few years back. We had a hurricane down in something. It was, God, I can't remember. Was it 2008? I don't know. Anyway, electrical service was down, everything. And I remember at one point I had money in one of these. God, Marlene, what bank was it? But it was one of those online banks.
Okay.
Guess what? These online banks do not have a physical branch
Nope.
that you could walk into and say, "Hey, I need more than $400. I need X amount."
Yeah.
And that was Marlene's bucket of cold water in her head going, "That's it." I closed up the account once I got everything straightened out. No more of these where if there's not a physical place that I can go to. Be quiet, you guys. That I can go get the money.
Hmm.
That's it. No more of this. No more. It
Right.
was a big wake up
Right.
call.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
because you don't. Sometimes you can't anticipate when stuff like that. Something's going to go south, even if it's
Oh, yeah.
localized.
Definitely. I definitely agree. And even I myself have moved my money out of the cloud in recent because I'm anticipating, I'm expecting this. I know this is about to go down because when they go ahead and they change over the currency and they say we're going to bring in Fed coin or whatever it's going to be
Yes.
called, right? And they already announced it. They said it's coming down the pipe. So when that happens, our dollars are going to need to be converted. Who's to say that the conversion to US dollars is going to leave us penniless? They can say maybe for every $1,000, you're only going to be able to get
Oh
50%
yeah,
of
they
it.
can they can evaluate it whatever they want
Yeah,
with the exchange.
exactly.
How's that?
Right.
Oh
I
yeah,
don't
we
like to. monger. I don't like to, but something, this is a hard reality of what
Sure,
this financial industry is really all about, and the manipulation of markets.
sure. And people don't, um, unless you, people don't realize that just like what you were talking about, what happened with the Canadian truckers,
Yes,
that they can snip you off and say, no, you can't buy that,
that's true. That is
that product, or go there, or go do this. But if everything you do transactional wise is tied to this card, they can do that. All
they
they have to do is
can.
go click, 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 eh, you know,
Exactly. Who's really in charge?
of
Yep,
course. And
it's true.
this is some everybody who doesn't, you know, uh, and that's why I'm going to go back. You heard about during the depression afterwards because of what happens with the banks, that a lot of
Hmm.
people ended up would bury their money because they
Right,
didn't trust banks. And
right,
there was nothing digital back then. But what
right.
happened was so many of these banks went belly up during the crash
Yeah,
that it was like, hey, you know what? I'm going to keep my stuff where I can get it. Thanks, because I don't trust the banks.
exactly. Well, the banks are all, somebody's got to be able to bail out the banks. Who is it going to be? It's going to be the government. Well, who's got first dibs on your money? The government.
Well,
So,
and it goes back to like what you were talking about the pharma. If it's government control, whether
mhm.
it's the government or whatever, if they control we're at the bottom of the totem pole,
Oh
you
yeah,
know.
definitely. Yeah, you go ahead, you work hard so you can be able to be taxed,
Sure,
and then they're going to tax what you have left over, and then whatever's
sure.
left over from that, that's going to be taxed. And at the end of the day, you're like, wow, how much am I really earning?
Right, exactly. When you
You look
back
at the real
out.
number. You look at the real number at the end of the year, and you're like, yeah. Everybody wonders, Chickie, why'd you take a vow of poverty? It's because I'm not going to give them anything else. I got nothing else to give. All I got
Well,
is my time to give to my community.
you know what? Um, there's and you know what? It's really interesting, Chicky, because at the same time that human beings are complex, we're kind of simple as far
Yeah.
as being happy and content.
Yes.
And unfortunately, and I'm going to go back to the hypnosis real quick. Lynn, you were talking about how we get bombarded with these
Yes.
messages, whether it's through TV or media or programs,
Right.
where they kind of say but the acquisition of all these material goods, as in, look how many storage facilities there are. This
Yes.
is a new phenomena where people
Yes.
have so much crap that they need storage spaces.
Yes.
Where they make you think that if you have, you won't be happy until you have all this crap. All right. And really, you don't need that stuff. Don't get me wrong. I understand that there's certain things that you would like. I don't have a problem with that. But it's like they kind of condition us to thinking that we need this stuff to be happy.
Right. Yeah. Like you need a computer to be happy. It's
Or
like,
we
no,
need,
you
or that car, it's like, and then all of a sudden it's like you get it and it's like, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, I'm still kind of unfulfilled kind of thing,
don't.
or all that junk or, things of that nature. And yeah, like I said, you know what, this thing of a place to store extra stuff like these storage
Yeah.
places, this was unheard of. And now in every street corner,
Yeah.
you get
This,
storage
yeah.
complexes.
Right.
And most people that have, by the way, because I know them, have a
Yeah.
house with a garage and they still have so
Yes.
much crap, they still have a storage space for all the other crap.
I know
And I've had a
people like
conversation. I
this.
said,
Yeah.
when was the last time that you used, any of the
Yeah.
stuff in there?
Yeah.
And they'll
What
look at
could
me and
have
they go,
been.
well,
Exactly. I've known a lot of people in my day to become hoarders. And it's
yeah.
such it's a mental health thing.
Well,
They
no,
need to
and
be
I'm not even talking about
aware.
hoarding because I'm familiar with hoarding and I've treated hoarders before, or
Right.
that hoarding, which by
Yeah.
the way is one of the most difficult things there is to treat as far
Mhm.
as,
Yeah.
really I don't think there's a cure. It's just managing them.
Yeah.
But this is something more modern where people
Right.
just, whether it's
Acquire.
inexpensive or, um, you know, it's just more and more consumerism. And
Hmm.
there was a time where I remember when I grew up, I'm going to say this real quick. We moved into an older house, but
Yeah.
the closets were smaller,
Well, oh
and every
yeah. Yeah.
right. And it was, yeah, you had your stuff in there, but that's it. If once you were out, it was like, okay, you need to get rid of some of your crap
Oh
because,
yeah.
it's coming out of your closet. Maybe you
Right.
had a couple of boxes, maybe decorations or whatever, but
Yeah.
otherwise, that was it. And nowadays it's out of control. So I think we're trying to find our fulfillment
Yeah,
where it's none to be found.
yeah, it's interesting. Let me see if I can take this down over here. Here it is. All right. This here is something I keep next to my
Okay.
computer. This is Maslow's needs.
Yes.
And
Okay.
Maslow's needs pyramid reminds us of all it takes to make us happy. And so many people get subjugated in their social conditioning because
Hmm.
they discount their needs. And
Yeah.
that's all it takes. And then they go ahead and they go, I can't be, maybe I need this, it'll make me happy. And it's like, why don't you just get in touch with yourself and
Yeah.
address your own needs instead of taking everybody care of everybody else's nice stuff, and be
Yeah.
able to just take care of yourself, and then you'll be happy. You won't have a need for all this other nonsense and all these other materialistic things that don't serve your highest good. All it is things. You can't take it with you.
No, you can't. And basically, you're being conditioned to spend the money because, like you said,
Hmm.
we can be put into hypnotic state, by certain beats of music. That's why
Right.
certain things,
Oh
and they
yeah.
brings down your filter, and that's
Yes.
when all of a sudden that whatever XYZ fill in the blank that you really didn't think was okay, all of a sudden it's like, man, that's really like, oh, I gotta get that,
Yeah,
or
exactly. They're
whatever.
doing it on television all the time. They're doing it in TV
Oh
programs.
yeah,
They're
of
doing a
course.
lot of subliminal programming as
Yes,
well. There's secondary tracks that are coming up on a lot of even non-Netflix programs. And when you go
yes,
ahead and you watch it on the computer, if you're able to record it and then separate some of the tracks, you're
yes,
like,
sounds.
oh, that has
It's
a political
immersive. It's you know what they call
agenda.
that immersive feeling that most people think that's great. You feel like you're really there.
Yes,
And and I know a lot of people have said, that subliminals, they don't allow subliminals anymore. And it's like, yeah, well, there's ways around that. There's
yes,
ways around that.
yes,
Yeah,
definitely.
as far as to drive behavior.
Yes, definitely.
And people don't understand that you can be hypnotized with your eyes wide open.
Yes,
A lot of people think that to be hypnotized, you're like, ah, no, no, no. You could be, and also states of high anxiety will put you in a hypnotic state. People don't
yes,
realize that that's why when you go to boot camp and all these places, they scream at you to
yes,
condition you. It's because that anxiety will drop
mhm,
and you will go into a hypnotic state where
yes,
you can be programmed.
yes,
Programmed. That's why a lot of the cults also, in
yes.
initiation, they grind you down and scare you or isolate you and that kind of thing because they're going to try to program you and
That's what
clear the
they did during
slate.
COVID. Remember what they did? They installed fear in us.
Oh boy,
Yep.
that was a big one. And by the way, I understand because at the beginning when nobody knew what this was,
Yes.
I think everybody thought of all the dystopian movies they'd ever seen.
I know, right? The last man on earth.
It
Poof.
was like, here we go, my God, it's happening. And so at the beginning, I understood where nobody was really sure.
Yeah.
What is this?
Yeah. It's
I
the
mean,
birth of the technological revolution. They had to be able to perform a massive reset on
right.
society.
And then I have a couple of people like were like, okay, more information started coming out. I was like, okay, something here doesn't make sense. But then it was like that, the roller coaster when you're going downhill, that long slide down. It was like
Yeah.
hang on tight because you couldn't get off the ride at that point. And
Yeah, that's true. And
and he,
you became indoctrinated too. I remember going to the dentist up at the local university here. It was a SUNY University, U Buffalo. I went to the dentist, and at the time I had a sinus infection.
hmm
So it'd been like a perpetual thing because I didn't, the mind body, it's what you know. I'm
right.
clogged up with what I know because I know it was a bunch of malarkey. So I'm up at the university and I said to him, listen, do you mind if I wear a face shield? Instead of wearing a mask because I can't breathe properly out of my nose. My sinuses are all inflamed at the time. And I had been clenching my teeth. I was like, whatever. So they told me originally, yeah, it's fine. As long as you got something that's going to catch your spittle. I says, I'm wearing this huge, face shield. That's fine.
Okay, I know what you're talking about. I've
Yeah,
seen those.
exactly. So they said it's good. So I went there like 5 or 6 times to get what I needed to do done at the dental clinic. And then one day at the dental clinic, the dean of the university decided that he was going to try to be able to scare me. So I guess somebody went ahead and told the dean they felt uncomfortable because I was wearing a face shield instead of a mask. It's like, oh, you're a nonconformist.
Oh
So
my
the
God.
dean
Yeah,
cornered me and said, I am the dean of this school. He cornered me literally
really.
in the corner of a wall of a cubicle. And he was like, where is your mask? Why are you refusing to wear a mask? Meanwhile, I had been sitting in the dental chair. I'm like, that. hell.
Right.
So I went ahead, and I'm pretty athletic. So I went ahead and I grabbed my leather jacket that was hanging behind me. I jumped over the partition and I go, I'm out of here. You're not going to threaten me. Because it was one of two things. It's either I slug the guy and
I love
I get
it.
arrested. I'm a New Yorker. It's in my blood. So I'm either going to be able to fight or run. One of the two things. And I said to myself, if I don't want to get arrested today, I need to be able to get the hell out of here. And then I had a slew of people chasing me. You need to put on your mask. You need to put on your mask. And I was just like, good luck with that. I'm out.
Yeah, it's like, sure.
Good luck. Good
Yeah.
luck.
Yes.
And then one woman jumps in front of me, and she blocked me. She was like, you're calling security. And I go, but you're blocking me. And I dodged around her like a good
I can't
football
believe that people were doing stuff like that. That's incredible. It's like you sheep. What is wrong with you? You know
Cuckoo,
these.
not well in the head, mental
Yeah.
illness, is what it is. And I share this story, and I went ahead and I talked to a very close friend of mine who was a police officer in New York City. And I said to him, is that even legal? Do I have any legal recourse against what happened to me? Because, they attacked me is what they did without laying hands
Right.
on me. And he says, unfortunately, right now you have no rights whatsoever. Your rights have all
Yes.
been
Because it's
revoked.
an emergency
Yeah,
scenario. That emergency thing is like let you get
yeah.
away with murder.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. But what would have happened if I had slugged the guy? I wouldn't be here
Let
right
me
now.
tell you something. I have to laugh because I was born and raised in Miami, but my husband, he's
Yeah.
from New Jersey. New Jersey. He was
Jersey.
a Port Authority cop. When I'm
Okay.
listening to you, it's like you're channeling him because
It's my inner
it's the same attitude. It's the same attitude that it would be like, oh, I'm gonna slug that guy. No, don't do that, Henry. Don't. I'm like, what's wrong with that guy?
What are you supposed to do? You know what I mean? Because it's like a man is cornering a woman. He is standing
Yes.
less than 2 feet away from me. He's in my personal space, And I'm thinking to myself, if this was me in a different time and space,
Sure.
and there weren't so many people around me, if this was on the street, then yeah, I'd slug the guy, I'd take him down, and then get the hell out of Dodge either way. But even
Right.
still, what are you supposed to do? You know what I mean? It's like you will obey the law, and I'm like, yeah, I'll go home. Thank you very much. It's okay.
Well,
Let me remove
it's
the words from my mouth.
what was it? Did you see this came out like a month ago? This was a guy in New York, as a matter of fact. The dad that did that clip where he said that his wife took both his boys for their pediatric visit. This was in August, right before school started,
Okay.
and that you know how they have to have certain things filled out so that the kid
Yeah.
can go back into school.
Oh yeah.
And he was outraged because he says the pediatrician asked I think his kids were like 8 and 6 or something like that.
Yeah.
Asked the 8-year-old if he felt like a girl. And he did this very viral clip, how outraged he was. He goes, this pediatrician has been his pediatrician since he was born. Okay, in other words, he's been treating this child for all these years. It's like, he's a boy. He's a boy. It's 2 boys.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, what happened to people in the medical and teaching fields? Like, what is this? Like the slip of the mask? I don't understand. He wasn't there. His wife was there. And his wife
I'll
like kind of
explain it.
set the doctor straight kind of deal. Like, what are you doing? What are you asking my son that?
Okay.
Like
So
I'm here just for a checkup.
as an agenda. So part of the agenda, and they're getting paid to be able to do this as well. It's all a part of, I guess you can say this World Economic Forum, New World Agenda,
Right.
whatever, Great Reset, Build Back Better, whatever you want to call it. But they also have to lower the population of the planet. Okay. So let me ask you a simple question. And for the question will go out there to everybody. Okay. Can a transgender person, okay, who has had gender reassignment surgery, can they reproduce? Yes or no?
No, they cannot.
There's your answer.
They cannot.
This is the reason why this is happening right now.
They
It's so cut and dry. It's so simple.
reproduce.
And all of the people that are jumping on the bandwagon that are easily influenced and easily affected by the power of suggestion, subliminal programming, all of these things, whatever they've been taught since they were early children, or what they may think they feel because they may have been subjected to some kind of subliminal influence of some sorts early on. This is all a part of the agenda, and they don't want you
But
to
you know what?
reproduce.
I guess what I think I have a hard time sometimes is that if you're a teacher, if you're a professional of some type, you're a teacher,
Right.
you're in this
Yes.
case a pediatrician, as a person, don't you have this thing where you can say, that's not right. I'm not gonna I'm not
It's
going to
the
bring up this
trolley question.
conversation.
Marlene, it's the trolley question. Okay. What is in the greater good? You got the trolley coming down the track. You have to pull the lever. Are you going to be able to take out the one guy standing there at one end of the track, or on the other set of tracks, you're going to take out the five guys? Okay. It's the trolley question. The trolley argument says you're going to be able to, unfortunately, take out the one guy, right? Because the five guys have got to survive. Well, this is the other way around, because now you got to be able to lower the population. So in this case, you're pulling the lever and you're taking the five guys out.
Well, you
This
know
is
what
a
that
very
tells
big
me? That,
argument.
and this is Marlene's theory. Here we go. Let's go down. Many, many, many years ago, because, people, I'm going to say, and the reason why I know it is that I've known of people that have had to go out of the country to get their medical degrees because there's only X amount of spots in
Right.
these
Yes.
universities for us, for medical degree.
Right.
And I think sometimes, contrary to what everybody thought, that, you were picked by your scores or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, there was an unwritten rule as to who they were picking to allow to go into their medical degree programs, as
Right.
in
Yeah.
that type of personality or that psychology, you
Yes.
know,
Right.
that, no, and I think that, and I know this sounds way out there, and it's probably not written down, but it was decided upon by whoever did the screening, for who are we going to pick to use these vacancies and these nice, medical degree. And like I said, I know a lot of people that went to Spain, to Santo Domingo,
Yes.
to get their medical degrees. And by the way, they're great doctors because I've met some
Yes.
of them afterwards. And, of course,
Yes.
they had to take their exams, for the
Yes.
board.
Right.
And I think that even back then, they were, you yes, no, you no. You might look
Right.
like you might actually resist that kind of deal.
Yes. The resistance. Yeah,
Resistance.
that's
So,
true.
that psychological profile, even though you didn't know you were being profiled, you were being profiled.
Yes, that's
Because
true.
that's the
That is
only
very
way that
true.
I can
Wow.
account for so many people thinking, um, how can I say, have that mindset. How's that?
Yeah, definitely. I think even in the medical practices, we're seeing a massive turnover also.
Yeah.
When's the last time you tried to call your doctor's office if you have a very large practice, with a lot of doctors at that practice, or it's, multiple locations? People don't answer the phones anymore.
Oh, no, 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 absolutely not. Forget it.
Everything's done through the
Mm-mm.
portal. This is the programming.
Yeah, no, you could call for, like, let's say if you want an appointment,
Hmm.
of course, if they're open, like during hours, and you'll get like a remote office that just all they do, they're not medical staff, in other words. All they
Right.
do strictly is appointment setting
That's
or
it.
cancellation or something, period.
Yes.
But they're not medical staff. You cannot ask them a question about anything. And
Hmm.
even if
Yeah.
you wanted to do what they call the, one of those teledoc visits, you still
Yes.
have to
Yeah.
schedule it through them.
Oh yeah.
So that's why I think that, and I don't know if you've experienced this. This has happened for a few years where all of a sudden the emergency rooms are flooded because
Yeah.
people will say, you know what, I can't go see my regular MD because
Right.
I'll see them 3 weeks later.
Hmm.
If you're like kind of sick, but not really like bad, bad sick, but you're like, hey, I've gone through over the counter meds and it's not working.
Yeah.
And I can't wait 3 weeks to go see my doctor. So they end up in
Right.
ER.
That's unfortunate. That really is truly unfortunate, because nowadays, to be able to make an appointment nowadays, you have to go through the portal. You have to get
Yes.
on the computer. You need to
Yes.
accept the cookie. You need to
Yes.
accept the scripts that are downloaded onto your machine. You have to allow to be tracked. You have to enter into the system. You need to click on make an appointment once you're signed in. And
Yeah.
then you can be able to wait an hour or two. Somebody will get right back to you and they'll say, all right, I'll get you in on whatever date, because the old school
Yes.
way of being able to do things where, I've got a landline here. So
Sure.
you can't just pick
You've
up the
got a land.
phone.
You've got a what? You've got a landline.
Girl,
I'm only.
yes, I do.
I'm only.
Yes, I do. Because every single time, whether I'm calling the IRS, I'm calling the Social Security Administration, anybody that requires a long hold time nowadays,
Uh-huh.
what they'll do is, I can't hear you. I can't hear you. Are you on a cell phone? Yeah, you on a cell phone? Or they'll just hang up on you and be like,
Yes. I've,
damn you, that's not me. That's on you. I'm on a landline, baby. Don't even hear me that excuse.
right.
I have confidence. And I'll even say to them, hello, can you hear me? I says, I know you can hear me, baby. I know you can, because I'm on a landline.
And it's
And then
like,
I
yeah,
hear
this
it
is.
click, say hello to Mr. Dalton.
Well, you know what? There's and good luck. Once upon a time in which that was considered bad customer service, and you would get in
Yeah.
trouble. Like that's the norm nowadays.
Oh,
I
yeah.
hate to say
And
it.
the what is it now? The IRS now is affirming calls out to foreign countries now. How does that
Oh
make you
yeah,
feel? The IRS,
that's incredible. That is incredible.
your sacred social security number.
All that
Okay.
information is out there.
That's right. And
Yes,
back in the day, they used to say, don't put your social security on the computer, don't
I
upload
remember.
any forms of identification to the internet. And now they force you to. You have to. You have no
Yes.
choice in the matter. You have to upload it. You got to be able to send over your birth certificate, your passport, who knows, all your pertinent documents. And it's
Oh
like,
yeah.
what happened to security? Oh no, it belongs to us now. Thank you.
Yes. And if you want to operate with us, if you need something from us,
Yeah,
this is the only
exactly.
way you're going to get it. So the only
Exactly.
alternative is not to want what they have, and the thing is to
Exactly.
source it from other places,
Exactly, because
or
they'll say, maybe your identity is going to be stolen if you go ahead and you upload these things. Guess what? Everybody in the United States at one point or another has or will have their identity stolen or compromised,
sure,
because that's the
yeah.
age that we live in, because you no longer have an identity. That's the truth.
All
You're
right.
just a
No, that the
digital
sanctity
person.
of what that was, and
Yeah,
then we can all go back to, well, if you have
yeah,
stuff that they can control,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
that's
That's true.
that's basically where we're at,
Hmm.
Hey, what was it? If and I'll give you an example. If right now, um, if you they what was it? I'm not going to I'm not going to say the name of the brokerage firm, okay? But I put in a little bit of money. I was doing some stuff with the crypto,
Right.
and they go through this thing, and of course they're online, and they're saying, okay, we got to verify, even though I'm supplying all the my email, my password. No, for
Right.
some reason we need to verify that it's really you. Okay, what do you need from me? Of course, you gotta, and then there you gotta take a picture, where with your ID. Well, no, that in the back, but we can't. It's not good enough. And I'm like, what the hell? With a phone, I'm like, I got an iPhone. Come on, this is not.
Hmm.
Well, basically, I was so mad that I did not have access, and this is my point. I didn't have access to get in there. And originally, I was going in there to look at a statement. I wasn't going to look.
Right. Yeah.
I was just going in there just basically what happened was I was locked out of the account because all of a sudden it was saying, "Hey, you know what? That picture that you took with your phone of to verify that that's you, even though you
Hmm.
gave all the information, that's it's too. What was it? It was either fuzzy or some of those deals." It was like I
Yes.
don't know how to take the picture. The lighting. It was like I went out into the sunlight. It was like there's no shadow. Like what am I gonna do?
Hmm. Yeah, I
And
agree with you.
I was so upset about that.
Okay,
And
I'll
I
share. Yeah,
and
I
then
share your compassion with
a few
that.
weeks
Yeah,
ago, I guess they went to another technology that was better
yeah.
where they make you turn your face. And as soon as I was like, oh, yeah, all right. Once I got in there, guess what? I emptied the account out. I
Oh,
was
that
like,
was wise.
never again. Thank God they really didn't have that much money. It was just
Yeah.
me screwing
Oh,
around with
yeah.
but it was
Hmm.
like, and the moral of this story is, ladies and gentlemen, that can happen at any
Yes.
point where even though you have the sign in information, all right,
Hmm.
Uh, and if they say, well, guess what? We don't, and of course they'll use a security, what's this? We want to make sure that your account is secure. We're going to need to make sure that it's you kind of deal.
Yeah.
Then they could turn that off. No access for you because we're not really sure it's you.
Right. It's AI making sure you're not a robot. Poof.
Right.
there's there's
Exactly.
there's more to it, because that's the reason why I stopped the Rock Psychic show, working for a third party. And some of you might know the name of the company. I'm not going to throw them under the bus. I've been
Okay.
working with them for many, 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 many years. Okay, not only as an affiliate with the North American Psychic and Paranormal Network, but
Mm-hmm.
also as Rock Psychic. And they had owed me money. They had owed me
Okay.
hundreds of dollars, and
Okay.
I hadn't received my payment. And I had a relationship with them that lasted nearly a decade. Okay.
Wow.
I know. Suddenly they go ahead and they tell me, they say to me, oh, we need a copy of your ID to be able to issue this payment to you. Now,
There
they're a
you go.
foreign entity, they're a European entity. And I
Okay.
said, hold the phone a minute. They are European and also South American entity. And I said, hold the
Mm-hmm.
phone a minute. I go, you want my, yeah, because they knew I moved. That was the key.
Okay.
Because I moved from New Mexico to New York. They go, we need your ID. And I go, I'm sorry, you have my ID already. I've provided it. This is not necessary. So I had to be able to kind of finagle and do an e-payment into the cloud. And I had to be able to go through a third party to be able, like a third party banking system, to get that little e-card kind of thing to get
Yes.
my payment. I
Yes.
couldn't go to my regular bank account, and they refused to issue me a check. You know,
Mm-hmm.
all because they wanted me to upload my driver's license to, and never, I'm going to tell you folks, be very careful, because sometimes there are foreign entities that are going to want your information and they're going to exploit it.
Sure.
There is a cellular company that will remain unnamed, but you guys will probably figure it out in upcoming weeks, because I started up with a cellular company and they said, we want a picture of your driver's license front and back. We want your face. We want everything. Da, da, da,
Yeah.
da, da. You know, and I went ahead and I went to it. They go, it's not good enough. It's not good enough. So I went into the store,
See?
and the girl couldn't even get it done. The girl behind the desk, she couldn't even get it done. And they had to be able to call customer service, and they wanted my practically, they wanted my ovaries.
Right. Yeah. It's like, what are you gonna
Whatever
do?
you want, what you
Right.
want. But it's just, and it's a prepaid account nonetheless. Okay, they went through all this for a
Uh,
prepaid account. I said, I says, you're going to drive me crazy. You are just going to drive me crazy. Why am I even bothering to be able to do business with you? But I says, they're the only cellular carrier, in my area that you can get a decent connection with. This is,
right.
I'm going to go with you. But there's not much you can be able to do nowadays, because they want to be able to verify you are who you are. And now there's all these bots going through, and
Yes.
then you've got scammers as well, which I think, and a lot of your listeners are going to hate me for saying this, but I really believe that a lot of the scammers that are out there right now are not individuals. I think that they work for the governments to be able to create distrust.
Yep. Now,
Make
and I'm gonna introduce my. This is something that I heard when we were. Now that we're talking about everything going digital, and
Mm-hmm.
the end of currency like paper, whatever,
Yeah.
and of course that they were talking about that the underworld is not going to be happy with it because you can't transact. Okay, this thing of like you're gonna,
Yeah.
I'm gonna come with my debit card and you're gonna pay me.
Right. Yeah.
Um, if you're let's go to John Wick world, okay? And then you
Right.
remember in John Wick world, they don't
Yes.
their
Right.
computers are DOS and they're on landlines,
Yeah.
okay? And they've got
Yes.
gold coin. It's that version of,
Right.
that's a make believe, but let's face it, crime, whether you're the petty thief
Yeah.
at the lower levels or the guy up there,
Yeah.
this thing of transacting, all digitally, it ain't
Yes.
for them. That's the only thing that I can think of that there might be a hitch
Right.
with this going digital stuff
Yes.
because there's millions and billions of dollars that's transacted, let's say arms, a bunch of
Yes.
other stuff
Yes.
that digital is not going to go down easy. That pill is not,
No, there's
because they
things that are, yeah.
understand.
Yeah.
They understand what you think I'm going to let somebody go and say, no more money for you. That those millions of dollars that I just transacted because I'm laundering some money or I'm paying this off. You're going to, no, I don't think so that you could track it.
Yeah.
That's the only and it's funny to think when I heard of that theory, I said, it's funny to think that crime
Yeah.
institutions or
Yes.
cartels might be the ones to save us from going totally digital because
Mm-hmm.
underworld figures will say, no dice. And I hate
Exactly.
to say it, there's a lot of governments which are run by cartels.
Of course. Of course. Yeah. Look at what's even happening right now. The United States of America, where we live,
Hmm.
right? The
Yes.
Chinese are buying up all the real estate. Why do you
Yeah.
think that is? It's one of the most valuable commodities that has ever existed. Real estate.
Yes.
So if you take away our traditional barter, which is our green currency, okay,
Yes.
what's going to be the next thing? Gold, gold. Not many people have gold. Not many,
No.
especially
No.
what you need to be able to borrow with. So what are you going to go to our next? What's going to be the most next valuable thing? Real estate. But the
Yeah.
Chinese are buying it up. You see,
Yes.
so they're all a part of the issue too. They're all in on it. This is like an
Right. It's like when you
all
are
in one.
being, and I'm gonna say it, and I'm sure there's people out there. This once upon a time, and I was one of them. You were young and you had a decent job. You could get into a starter home, and little by little,
Oh yeah,
you
sure.
had a decent job, or you
Yes.
saved towards it. And you had nowadays, it's very difficult, even if you have a
Mm-hmm.
decent job,
Right.
for you to get even what they call, the starter homes,
Oh yeah.
because it's out of reach.
It is. It is.
And that's always, I think that what you were talking about, that drive of not allowing people to own. Because this is, as a matter of fact, the other day they were saying in the next few years, the baby boomers are going to be doing the biggest transfer of wealth,
Yes.
okay, to the general, their children or their grandchildren, because they came from the years when you could buy a home or
Right.
property
Yeah.
and accumulate some type of wealth. And of course, they're dying and there's
Right.
passing. It's like, I forgot what is, it's an astronomical amount
Yeah.
of
Definitely.
value of wealth that's going to be transferred.
Right.
But I think that that's going, unless something changes, this is going to be the last time that there's going to be that transfer of
It's
wealth.
they've got it covered, and I'm watching it happen here in the Buffalo metropolitan area, here in the Niagara Falls area of New York. So what happened was prior to like say COVID, okay,
Mm-hmm.
you could go into Buffalo and you could buy a house, a beautiful 3 bedroom, 2 bath house, okay, and you could pick it up for like maybe $70,000 in
Okay.
Buffalo proper, okay. And you can even be able to have a very low tax rate. You could be paying maybe $300 a year, $500 a year.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, that's great. All these people bought their houses. COVID came around. So what ended up happening? Not only did the prices of the homes quadruple, okay, but now the property taxes like went up like 10 times.
It's not.
So I know. So now you've got all these people that are in these homes and they paid $60,000 for them, right? Whatever it
Mm-hmm.
was. Beautiful deal. And now you got mamas and you got papas and you got all these people, and they're getting $10,000 tax bills. And you're
Yes.
like, how am I going to afford that? Okay. So we go ahead and we try to work out a payment plan. That's not going to work. Well, they end up getting their homes foreclosed and they end up having to go live with family members. And now
Mm-hmm.
you're getting these massive family units. And now there's a new thing happening too. It's like, oh, what happened to affordable housing? And if you look on social media now, it's all about tiny houses. They want you to
Oh
live
my
in a
God.
shed. They want you to live in a shed. That's what it
Yes.
is. It's a shed. What you would normally store your gardening equipment in is going to become
Yes.
the new housing. And now all of these offices, all of the commercial real estate, like in Manhattan, in Chicago, or San Francisco, all these places, they're going to be converting all of that into tiny apartments, tiny living spaces.
Because they're empty, right?
They're empty, exactly. And what they're going to do is they're going to say, let's make affordable housing. So now
Yeah.
people will be able to have an apartment, or they'll be able to have like a tiny house or whatever it's going to be. And what
Mm-hmm.
they're doing also is they're knocking down a lot of old dilapidated buildings, and they're going ahead and they're making room for new apartment buildings. So these tiny things, like we would see pictures of places in Asia where people are living
All those
in,
cubicle things.
yeah, it's like 100 by 100 square feet, and that's their apartment. That's how people are going to be living.
That's horrible. And
It,
I
it
heard, Chickie, maybe you can speak to that, in New York where they used to have that rent control stuff.
Oh, get away. Yeah, it's gone. It's gone. Maybe
Yeah.
they can do it in some increments, but unless you are a victim of domestic violence, or you're in on like a Section 8 program or something of that nature, then you got a little bit more flexibility because the government's there to be able to help you because you're under a
Well,
clause.
I also heard that some of these properties, they've let them go bad so bad that they're unlivable anymore. In other
Yeah,
words, that
knocking
rent
down.
control, it
Hmm.
it exists, but not really, because the properties that had rent control, they haven't been upkept. I don't know if this is accurate.
Oh
That
yeah,
now they're not livable anymore. So basically, it's in essence they're getting rid of the rent control program that people
yeah.
sometimes had these apartments for years and years.
Hmm. Yeah, it's not safe. I remember before I moved out of New York City, this is back because I predicted 9/11. So I got out before 9/11. So I gave myself a drop dead deadline of like, what was it, July the 15th, 2001, to get out of New York. I was,
Wow.
I said, I got to get out of here, but I got to have enough window of time. So
Uh-huh.
before that happened, I would go to Brooklyn. And in Brooklyn, out towards Coney Island, you had something called the Marlborough Projects. And the Marlborough Projects were, again, rent controlled, and it was subsidized housing. You had a lot of people of ethnic living there,
Hmm.
and it was very affordable. But when you went ahead and you took the elevator to be able to go up into someone's apartment, the elevator is going to smell like urine. You go into the stairwell, you're going to see feces, you're going to see urine, you're going to see graffiti, you're going to see all kinds of
Right.
disgusting things. And it's all due to a lot of mental illness and drug
Sure.
use. I mean, drug use, mental illness, same thing. But either way, you're going to be able to, see how badly they allowed these projects. And all these projects originally came around for the veterans coming back from Vietnam. They wanted to be
Hmm.
able to provide them all, affordable housing. And then, of course, that need had slowly gone away as they were able to afford homes in the 1970s, 1980s. And then, of
Hmm.
course, the price of houses crashed in the 1980s. Interest rates went skyrocketing, but people were
Yes.
able to buy a house for like, $30,000, $40,000. God bless them,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So it was quite the time. But then a lot of people got out of that subsidized housing, and then it ended up going to the impoverished, if you will.
Well, what
And
happens is also
right,
like what happened in some of these places like Detroit, that the regular citizens
yes,
kind of get scared. Like they move away, like, okay, this is
yeah,
not starting to be safe anymore. So it's a
right.
combination of things. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, definitely. I know around that time we had race riots as well, people coming back from Vietnam. We had the race
Yeah.
riots. I'm trying to think whatever else happened. There was so many things that happened in or around that time that sent people scattering. Oh, also, I think it was like in the 1980s, also, they shut down all the mental institutions as well. They took all
That
the
was a
people,
big
they
it's
just
like,
bust them into the middle of the city and go, here you go, have your
yeah, I heard that
freedom.
originally. The
Yeah,
theory behind that, which I was thinking, who thought of this, was that when they let them out of these bigger institutions
yes,
and put them in communities, that the community would take over and care for these people. Guess what?
right.
Nobody did.
No,
And then, of course, you know, their family of origins, most of the times, if they had one, stepped back because, especially if there was a severe mental illness.
yes.
So that's when you get the homeless. They had to live somewhere, and
Yeah,
whatever. And it was, yeah, like you said, they let them loose, and there was
right.
no plan of what to do with these people to help them.
Right. And then a
Mm.
lot of them ended up in the subsidized housing where the
Okay.
government would give them a voucher every single month to be able to get them off the streets. You would go into, and they still have a system in place where you go into a shelter, you get on a public housing waiting list, and then eventually your number gets called. And then, depending upon how much money you have or
Hmm.
you're earning at the time, they go ahead and they do a sliding scale for your rent. And they still do that to this day. But it's dicey because a lot of private landlords, know that there are places that are going to end up getting messed up. So that's why you have
They
these
they don't want to
programs.
participate. Yeah.
Yeah, so you got a lot of programs now, like your Fannie Mae Home Path and all that, that go ahead and they take over the property once the landlord has abandoned it or it's been seized or foreclosed or whatever,
Hmm.
and then they rehabilitate the property and then they resell it and they make a big lot of money. 500, $600,000 for a house that originally was purchased, from a government auction for like $10. What are you going to do?
Yeah. Exactly. And they have the pockets to basically put it back together and
Yeah,
put it back on the market. And yeah, of course, because
yeah,
when you have the pockets for it,
yeah.
and and that's I have to laugh because they don't I think they canceled them, but they had those reality shows about the tiny homes.
Oh yeah,
And I looked at that and I said, you know what? It sounds at the beginning kind of romantic because if you say, well, I can move here, and it's like, okay, well, this is basically the same. Basically, you're talking about an RV kind of deal. But
hmm,
there's these people that it's like I'm looking at them and it's like, you're about to elbow the other person in the face because you're trying
yeah,
to both like, and it was like, "Mm, you know what?
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah, it's true. It is very
that's
true. Yeah, and the meanwhile, they're selling RVs, like Class A
oh
RVs, where you could travel in your tour bus and live happily ever after. You
yes,
got enough room for you, your kids, your
yes,
family, everything like that. But you're paying also 300, $400,000 for the
oh
bus.
yeah, oh yeah.
And
It
to
depends
buy,
on which.
yeah,
Oh no, no, no. It's become crazy, and it's really funny because I live in a mobile home.
right.
And I did this on purpose because up here, since getting back to my thing, I thought I did have to worry about hurricanes, which it
Yeah,
really isn't. In the space of 1 year,
right.
what I bought brand new went up $30,000 in 1 year.
Yes, that's what happened with my house. I have a mobile home as well, and it went up $50,000
There
in,
you go.
yeah,
Which traditionally mobile homes are were known where it's like the cheap
appreciate.
living, trailer park, whatever.
Yep.
Like, if, and I remember the reason why I find out is I was renewing my insurance. And I said, you know what? Let me make sure that whatever. And when I went on the website for the manufacturer, I was like, huh? You know,
Mhm.
and even then they had a disclaimer that they would, because of course, because of the shortages of materials, that you would end up paying when they
Yeah.
delivered, even if they negotiated, let's say, this price with you
Yes.
7, 8, 9 months down the road when they were actually ready to deliver it,
Right.
you would have to pay that price
Yes.
versus maybe what you contracted with 9 months before because there was such a
Yeah.
fluctuation.
Yes. Yes.
And
Definitely.
people don't believe me when I said, and I had to have an argument with the insurance company when I said,
Right.
look, because usually mobile homes, they're like vehicles. They devalue as time goes by. Even
Yes.
though this was practically, it was new. And I had to have like kind of like an argument with the agent. I said, look, I need to insure it for more because it's worth more.
Right. 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 Yeah.
It's like if
Definitely.
I had to replace it, if something happened, what I have it insured for is not going to be enough. And
Right.
it was one of these kind of thinkings that it's a topsy-turvy world as
Right.
far as housing, getting back to the original thing,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
um, where what's basically that we're herded, like what you were talking about, into smaller spaces or smaller things, or
Right. Yes.
that, uh, well, a cubicle's better than the streets kind of deal,
Yeah. That's
because I
true.
can't afford anything else,
Yeah.
which is
That's
pretty
right.
sad.
Yeah. Definitely. I'm seeing that
So let me
happening.
ask you something, Chicky. Are you doing anything right now online? I mean, or can people find you on your website, or
Oh,
do
they
you?
can find me on my website and they can be able to book a session with me. I'll do a video call with them or a phone call, if they want a reading or they want to be able to do some kind of mind body healing, or they want to be able to do life coaching or mentoring,
Okay,
or maybe they need some guidance with regards to some advice, beyond what their regular doctor can be able to give them. And by all means, I am not a licensed professional. I will always
right,
refer you back to your licensed professional. But if you have run the gamut and you are out of solutions, I am very innovative with my approaches.
okay.
And I tend to be able to move mountains. It was just before the show, we were even speaking about a woman who was on one of the social media websites next door, and her has to be able to give up her child. I mean, not her child, her children. They're fur children, if you will. But
Right, yeah.
her human child developed an allergy to the cats, and they ran again through the gamut of all of the allergists and the doctors and the pharmaceuticals and everything. And there's a mind body connection to that. And I have healed people, not by laying hands, not Reiki, none of that,
Right.
but through well being coaching and being able to shift perception, because a lot of children do grow out of cat allergies, but it's being able to mature the mindset and the perception that helps them to
Oh, please don't.
or whatever may be going on, and all the things that we've been talking about. And in the healing profession, I have a very different approach. So if somebody wants to get a hold of me, you can go to chickie.org, rockpsychic.com.
Okay.
Nappin.net is where you would network. We mentioned Love's Church earlier on. I've been so busy
Hmm.
and so overwhelmed with all of the different projects that I've been doing this summer. I haven't had time. I'm working on merging Be
Okay.
Inspired Radio and also Love's Church, and all of the programming for all of that. Plus, the Psychic News Network is another program that we lifted off briefly. And it was all predictions based on the news, is what's going to happen next in the news.
Okay.
We've been 100% accurate. Myself and my fiance, John, have been working on all these little projects, but we're phasing out the Love's Church and also the Be Inspired Radio right now. We're working on bringing all those programs into a podcast format, so it's on demand listening rather than live streaming radio. Because
Right. Exactly.
it was at the point where it was the radio station was running 24 hours a day. We had a lot of listeners and everything like that, but the cost for the electricity has gone up. You would think, I live right here at Niagara Falls, that my electricity would be low because I'm right here at the power grid. No, I'm paying the highest
Uh-huh.
rate in the nation. So I'm looking at it and I'm saying, I got to pick and choose my battles wisely. And then the
Sure.
cost of hosting went up another $200. And I'm like, well, if I took a vow of poverty, I don't have the money to pay these guys. And I said, would you negotiate? They said no. So now I'm in the process of being able to find some kind of other solution. So
Right.
in the interim, it is what it is. It's now
Podcasting, you know what? It gives, at least it's the flexibility
yeah,
for people to listen when they can,
yes, exactly.
whether they want to download the MP3, or, if you want to put a link to, so that they can. And I tell my
Mhm.
client, my listeners, and because they hear it all the time, because I say it all the time.
Right.
If you go to my websites, you can listen from the browser or download without commercial interruptions, which
That's
you're going to
right.
get in all of these different podcast platforms. You can
Mhm.
go and you can listen, And I know some people or they have a certain platform that they like, or they have the app. But
Hmm.
I always give them the choice that you could listen to me without commercial interruption, because
Yes.
sometimes I myself get frustrated because I'll be listening to something and then in the middle of it I'll go, and by the way, now you can. It's like, oh, I'm all like, I'm all into the whatever I'm
Right.
listening to. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
don't do that to me.
Yeah, that's
But
true. I'm not going to be going through a host. I can guarantee you that because I don't want my freedom of speech being impeded upon. I'm most
mhm.
likely going to be able to find a solution to run my own servers, and they will
Let me tell
not
you something. I've
forbid.
thought of that. I have thought
Yeah,
of that.
it can be done. Okay, it's just a matter of being able to
Let
do
me tell you
some
something.
slightly interesting procedures, but yeah,
Yeah.
you circumvent the man, so to speak.
Well, I'll tell all my everything I have produced, whether it's written,
Yes,
podcast, or audio, a video. I have downloaded versions of it to an external hard drive.
yes,
There's nothing
that's
in the
wise.
cloud. They have it in the cloud, but
You
if
have
it
your own.
goes south, guess what? I
Yeah,
have copies of everything,
yeah. Speaking of that,
written, images, everything.
yes. The one thing I will be able to tell all of the listeners and watchers at this time also is there's been a lot of talk about solar flares.
Yes,
And one of my predictions is that it is eventually going to knock out the power grids.
yes.
Now, it's
So do
also
you
going to
think that
change.
then that'll be a solar flare versus a man-made
They have
EMP?
to be able to integrate new web technologies. And the World Wide Web is your dominant protocol right now. We used to have
Yes.
IRC, we used to have FTP, we used to have all these different protocols, but now the World Wide Web has taken that over. So what's going to end up happening is they need to be able to install a new version of the web, and they need to be able to bring everything up into like this whole interactive format. Everything is
Mm-hmm.
going to change, but they need to be able to again do a shutdown. They shut us down in our society with COVID, and now
Right.
there's going to be a solar flare. Solar flare, or so they say. Okay, keep your eyes on the Soho website, SOHO. But
Okay.
anyway, there's going to be a solar flare, and it's going to knock out the power, and that's what they're going to say. Okay, but I'm going to tell you right now, for all of you out there that store your stuff out in the cloud and you don't have a backup of it, okay, whether this is an actual solar flare, it'll destroy your electronic media. Print these
Yes.
out or store them into an electromagnetic case that will
Yes.
protect from an EMP, so to speak.
Yes.
If you've got photos, print out, go back to having an album, print out your
Yep.
favorite photos. Don't
Yep.
leave them on the internet. Do not leave them on your computer, because if something happens with
They're
this,
bad. They're bye-bye.
yeah, you're going to lose everything. And unless you don't have an attachment to it, like me, I don't care. I'm kind of like whatever. But I've been recently, over the past few months, I went ahead and I got into scrapbooking because out of
Mm-hmm.
necessity. There's things I don't want to lose. So
Sure.
and now I'm starting my new little hobby for the winter. But I'm starting to print everything out and making sure that I've got a good printer and ink and all these kinds of things, because I want to make sure that whatever I want to save that's important to me, that's digital, is now going to become something physical and tangible. So I'll always be able to have it. I don't need a computer. I don't need the internet. I don't need electricity. If something happens, I have it.
Yes.
It's near and dear to my heart.
Right. And if you can't, the cheapest thing, get a thumb drive. Get a thumb drive, download it, put the thumb drive. You know that they do have cases that you can
Yes.
basically slip it in and that you can
Mm-hmm.
protect from an EMP. And then,
Yes.
when electricity comes back, I'm saying if that's really what
Right.
you got left,
If the
as
computer's
far
not
as,
fried.
you know, oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm anything is, and that's, as a matter of fact, I'm gonna, and I've also heard that that's why there's a push to get rid of AM radio,
Yeah.
because this is
Long
historically,
distance, long distance communication, ham,
uh
all of that. I know. I know it's all there, and they make you get a license if you want to be a ham operator. They want to know who's using it. You
yes,
can do ham over the internet now. You can. There's a lot of things, but even CB radios, all of that, it's
I got a
going bye bye.
CB, I got a CB right here,
Oh, God bless you.
a handheld
God,
CB radio.
that's
What?
beautiful. Yeah, that's good. You need it. You need it
Yes, I
in case
do.
of an emergency. What about Morse?
Let me tell you something. I could see some guy from the military is like, hey, but and as a matter of fact, what was it, Ford? I want to say it was Ford that was saying, oh, we're going to phase out the AM out of the
I heard that
out
the
of the
cars.
radios, and people, there was such an outcry that they stepped back. And I said, that's only a matter of time. They're going to keep pushing it with trying to, get do away with the AM,
Right.
and
Yeah.
because this was the way of, all you need is, as a matter of fact, I would say make sure you have an AM FM radio with,
Yeah.
batteries.
Yes. They're eventually going to be able to repurpose the band, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And just like with, you've got your 5G, which is millimeter wave.
Hmm.
It's up there with like microwave, all these other things that have been phased out. Back when we were using 2G phones, 3G phones,
I
they
remember.
sunsetted it. Yeah, they're eventually going to sunset your 4G. Then eventually they're going to put down your 5G once we're up to 8G
Yes.
or
Yeah, it's
whatever.
like, what are you going to do when what you want doesn't work? You
Yeah,
could say,
exactly.
I'm not going to upgrade to that other model,
Yeah,
but there comes a point where, and even now, you'll see some programs that they'll say, we're not giving you any updates.
right.
Okay, we're not going to update it, and you're on your own.
Yeah, that's true. I've switched everything, almost everything I've switched over to be able to use Linux. I'm
Yes, and
99% Linux here. So
yeah,
I've got some Mac stuff, for the sake of some mainstream connections and everything like that. But for the most part, it's not. And well, it's funny. It was back in, I want to be able to say the 1990s. I remember walking on the beach in Rockaway Beach, Queens, New York. And I was doing some readings. I was with another person. And I told them, I said, we're going to come a time where all of our video that we engage in, like video calling and phone calls and the TV that we watch, all of this is going to go completely digital. And back then in the 1990s, it was like we're still using rabbit ears. What the hell are
yeah.
you talking about? What is all of this? And I says,
Hmm.
it's all going to something called light pulse, which is a new generation. They're already using it. Like all the technology that we get as consumers is what, like 30, 40 years
Yeah,
uh,
we're
old.
downstream from all of that as far
Yeah,
as.
yeah, it goes into, scientific and military application first, and then once it's been phased out or replaced with newer, bigger, better, more cooler stuff, then it gets handed down to the civilians. So, but back in, I would tap into these things, and I said, eventually we're going to have satellites going across the sky, and they're going to formulate all of these grids, and you're going to look up at the night sky. You will not be able to see the stars. Your civilians are going to not be allowed to see the stars. All you're going to see are light trails. And what is
Right.
that? We know what that is now. We know what these
Yes.
light trails are.
Yes.
So it's very interesting, but there's going to be more. They're sending up more, and they're going to formulate grids, and all of our communication technology, almost like a bubble, is going to be bouncing off of the atmosphere, off of all of this technology that's going to be up above our planet and surrounding our planet. And everything's going light pulse. No, it's not going to go by frequencies anymore. And also, I had made another, I guess you can say, Akashic download, whatever you want to call it, while I was on that
Hmm.
walk. Oh wow, they know that the number one cause of cell malignancies in the world is RF, radio frequency.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So when people are hollering, going millimeter wave 5G, that's going to cause cancer. Well,
Uh-huh.
duh. But at this
Exactly.
point, but you got to turn it up. That's the kicker. Right now, it's so low powered. You need to be living right across the street from the tower. That's how low powered it is. That's the reason why here I am. I live a mile from the nearest tower and I don't have signal. It's too low powered.
Okay, that you were saying that
The millimeter
y-
wave for the 5G. It's too low powered right now. That's
we
why
don't.
people are like, they have poor signals. You can look at your phone, look at your cell phone, look how far away your tower is. You can go for a ride and look for it. I mean, even right now, I have one bar and the tower's only a mile away.
And you would think normally that that tower would be more than sufficient, that you should have a real strong signal.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. Definitely. But no, it's millimeter wave. So you can only be able to turn it up so much before you start cooking people and things. And it started screwing with some of the microwave technologies with the airplanes, and they had to be able to recalibrate things. And it just turned into a hot mess.
Well, this is, you know what, and I know this sounds like, you remember back in James Bond when the Spectre or one of these
Yeah.
things. It's
Right.
like,
Yeah.
back then it was like, wow, this, of course it's a James Bond movie.
Right.
Like little
Yeah.
did we know.
I
So it's
know.
like, we're gonna get the thing, this thing out in outer space, and it's gonna beam thing, and it's like, wow, this is great.
Yeah.
What a fantastic movie.
Exactly. Can you imagine 50 years ago us talking about this stuff? Okay.
Oh, we would have been
People
like, yeah, yeah, sure.
would have been like, you know what, you guys may be really good psychics, but good luck with that. But you're just a crazy conspiracy theorist. And here it is 50 years later, and you're like,
Well, you know
aha.
what? I'm gonna tell you. I want to tell you real. When you spoke earlier about robotics, and I
Yes.
said every movie produced by Hollywood, even
Yeah.
though on the face of it you go, man, this is a great sci-fi
Yes.
whatever movie with robotics or AI, they tried to fix it.
Mhm.
When the first Terminator came out, which was great, basically here we were, Skynet took over, killed everybody, or almost
Right.
killed everybody, and we were
Oh,
at the mercy. They told Cameron, fix that. So what happens is when the second one came out, guess what?
right.
Yeah, you have, but guess what? That original robot came and was like the savior at the same time.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, when
Definitely.
you went to the first Alien movie, you remember the science officer turned out to be a robot.
Right.
And
Yes.
he's saying, all you guys, all the humans are collateral damage. I need to bring back this species to Earth so that the
Hmm.
corporation can use it, whatever.
Yes.
Somebody said, don't do that. When they come out with Aliens 2, who's the savior? The robot guy, don't you remember? That
Yeah.
saves her and the little girl, Newt,
Yes.
when they're
Yes.
coming out. Whenever they've done anything with Hollywood, like AI, somebody says, whatever you do in the sequel, you better fix it
Oh,
so that
right.
robots are somehow they save us. Aliens, there's a good and the bad, but the savior always ends up being the robot somehow.
Yeah. Isn't that weird?
If you look at the theme, and of course we get all caught up with the story, and it's so neat, and of course it's sci-fi. But if you look at a lot of them where they've ever portrayed AI as
Right.
strictly antagonistic towards humans, they
Right.
fix it in a subsequent version. I guaranteed, guaranteed. They
Wow.
always fix it. As in, no, 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 you cannot make robots have to somehow save us, or they that basically, or they make him very human like, or that kind of deal.
Right. Right. Right.
But
Yeah.
if you look at a lot of these movies, you will see that there's always been a push to humanize in the sense of a machine, or make them our that we need them. They're going to save us somehow. That kind of deal.
Yeah. Either that or it's some kind of like alien thing going on of some sorts.
Yeah, something
Gotta
along
be.
those lines. But if you look at the storyline of some of these subsequent films from the first ones, they try
Yes.
to fix that. Oops, like what did you do? You made the robot like like the original Alien.
Right.
Basically,
Yes.
it's being told, all of you are disposable,
Yeah. That's true. That is
and
very
I got to bring back this alien life form because I'm basically I'm a robot. I'm owned by this corporation who all they want is to get this life form back to Earth.
true.
And
Yeah.
the second subsequent movie, they fixed that right away.
Interesting. Very
Yes,
interesting.
if you
Speaking
if
of
you if you look at some of the stuff, and we don't catch on because we just you normal people don't get caught up in that.
normals, yeah, exactly.
Normies,
Definitely.
yeah, we're normies.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
normies, exactly. But that takes me on to another thing, because we're talking about, Earth and all this other kind of stuff. We went into COVID a little bit, and it reminded me of something else, how art imitates life. Around the time, this is super interesting, and I'll share this with the audience as well. Around the time of the first vaccine, I had a prediction that Pfizer
Okay.
was going to be the first vaccine to be approved. I was spot on correct. Now,
Okay.
when that happened, I said, "What is this vaccine?" Right. And I like to do something. I don't know if you guys ever play with Spirit of Music or something like that, where you think of a question and your answer comes up in the next song on the radio. Okay.
Okay.
So I do
Yes.
this with TV. Okay. And it never fails. I'm going to tell you something here. There is a free to air television station, almost like how you have your rabbit ears, but now you can put up a
Hmm.
digital antenna, you get your local stations or whatever, right? So we have a station called Comet TV, and you can
Okay.
watch Comet TV online and everything like that too. But it was late
Okay.
at night. I just finished up doing whatever I needed to be able to do, and I retired to be able to go watch some television. And I said to the universe, please inform me and tell me what is up with this vaccine stuff. And sure enough, universe delivered. I turned on the TV, and an episode of Stargate SG-1 came
Okay.
on. I don't know if you guys all remember that TV
Oh
show,
yeah.
right? Okay.
Uh-huh.
So I can't remember which of the two, but I'm going to tell you which episodes they are. You guys can go on a hunting expedition for them. I found them out there on Daily Motion. The first one is, I'm going to look at my email right here, and
Okay.
it is episode 510. Original air date was August 31st, 2001.
Okay.
Syndication air date 11/11/2002. It's DVD disc season 5, disc 3. And it says SG-1 encounters a potential new technologically advanced ally in the war against the Goa'uld, though they do not know the dark secret of the Ashen. Now, the second episode is from 2010, and it's episode 416. Original air date 1/12/2001. Syndication air date 2/11/2002.
All
DVD
right.
disc season 4, disc 4. And it says 10 years into the future, the former members of SG-1 must send a message into the past to prevent the extinction of the human race. And it goes on with a further synopsis. But in a long story short, my question to Spirit or Akasha or wherever it was, what is this? Turns out that in these episodes, the humans made an ally, supposedly, with an alien race called
Okay.
the Yashen, and they delivered to us anti-cancer, anti-aging vaccines. And they went ahead
Okay.
and they gave to the entire population of the world, and they said, may you live long and prosper. But there was a dark
Mm-hmm.
side to it. And the dark side was that Samantha Carter, who's one of the leading characters, ended up becoming sterile. Now, what happened in COVID?
Oh,
Let's hold
yes.
that thought, put a pin in it. So
Yeah.
then they have to go ahead and they have to use the Stargate, the portal, and they need to send a message back to their earlier selves. Originally, so now we go, and I said, I need more information, Spirit, please elaborate. Okay. So the very
Okay.
next evening, sit down in front of Stargate. I just randomly put it on. Another episode. It was again about the Ashen. It was a random
Okay.
time, a different time of the evening and
That's
everything. I'm
incredible.
like, sure enough, it's the another episode. And this goes back into the past where they first meet the Ashen, and they're on a planet and they're just harvesting. They're using the planet for harvesting and for growing wheat or something like that.
Okay.
So, and it's not even Earth. They're in another planet. And it turns out that one of the workers that's working the fields says, "Oh, there's iron root. I can't get it out. It's a problem." So the SG team goes ahead and says, "Well, let's go check it out." So two of the guys go down below the ground, and it turns out to be a radio tower. And they go
Okay.
down there and they're going through like ruins under the ground, and they find a newspaper, and it's written obviously in an alien language. They eventually get the translation, and the translation in the newspaper is about sterility.
Wow.
So yeah. So here we are so many years later, and the art is imitating life, so to speak.
Yes.
And we are watching this happen in a huge, huge, huge way. I know people personally who have become sterile, have had miscarriages, had all kinds of problems. Now, I'm not saying it's because of the vaccine, but they got COVID, and it messed
Yes.
with their endocrine system. It messed with their hormones.
Yes.
So it messed with everything. And as God is
Yes.
my witness, I have sat with them, and it's too many people, too many
Right. The
tears.
and I've also heard of shedding, that people that have been around that they've also, and see, the thing is that whether if, even if you can't pinpoint exactly, like you said, what are the odds? Yes, of course, women have always, there's been miscarriages, or or
Yeah.
you hear of somebody that had a hard time or couldn't get pregnant. That's always been around. Nobody's saying, but that was a
Right.
rare situation. Okay.
Yes. Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
that was and now it's, you hear about people like, oh, they're trying to get pregnant, young, healthy, couple.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And it's like, you
Yep.
know, why is like it's more common than it was before, whereas that was, you know, that
Mm-hmm.
was something that very rarely did you ever see. Yeah, you would have a childless couple, some by choice, but others because.
Right. Yes, exactly. Right. Yeah, definitely. And I'll share from personal experience. I will go very intimate. And I will say, like I said, before COVID was a thing, I got hit with something. It was
Okay.
something that I'd never gotten hit with before in my entire life. I normally do not get sick. I'm a very
Mm-hmm.
healthy person. And after I ended up getting sick, I did get pregnant and I lost a
Okay.
child.
I'm
Okay.
sorry.
Now, it is what it is. It's
Mm-hmm.
nature, it's life, right? And that's what I
Right.
considered it, right? And it was very interesting because I ended up getting COVID a second time.
Okay.
And I then, within a matter of a month and a half, I became barren. I was no longer fertile. And I went to the
Really?
gynecologist and they told me, you are in menopause. And I'm like, how do you go from being fertile to being in menopause? One, two, three.
Yes.
They did the sonograms, they did everything. They said, you're infertile. Well, have you know, it's been a year. Okay. And
Okay.
I thought, yeah, I'm in menopause. This is what it is. I want you to know that I'm just starting to be able to heal. I'm doing a lot of shadow work. I'm doing a lot of the internal, like the schema work, if
Mm-hmm.
you will. And I'm
Right.
starting to be able to change the structure of my cells with intent to see if
Okay.
this is really true. I want you to know that this past week, I'm not, I'm not infertile anymore. I've
Really?
started up again. I've changed my
Wow.
biochemistry as God is my witness.
That is incredible.
As God
See,
is my witness.
and see, I hate to say it, but when you have that type of proof, in other words, not that, how sometimes people become, I don't want to say they delude themselves, but when you have your
Right.
body basically responding in a manifest in a way that you could prove it,
Right. Yes.
okay, then it's like, okay, this is not me wishing for something, and that's all
Right.
is.
Yeah. Exactly. It's not. I did nothing. All I did was the schema work, and I went ahead with the intent to be able to reprogram my cells. I'm also doing a lot of work to be able to clear any
Yes.
remnants of the virus from my body.
Mm-hmm.
And that requires me being able to introduce new viruses into my body, good viruses, because we always carry good and bad
Sure.
viruses in our body. Okay. And
Mm-hmm.
they become a part of our permanent imprint. So I am introducing things into my body that I know will either destroy or
Right.
compromise the other virus. Like I'm doing a lot of like contradictory work. And is it any surprise now? I'm no longer menopaused. How does that
Exactly.
happen? How does that happen? And I have an appointment with my practitioner very soon. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm not going to be wise. I'm not going to be a smartass. But what I am going to do is I am going to say, well, yeah, by the way,
Uh-huh.
can you please, can you tell me the condition of my ovaries, please?
Okay. Exactly. Exactly. Because, and you know what? This is the thing, and I know there's a lot of good doctors out there, but some doctors really have a hard time accepting that there's certain things about us medically that is out of their control. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying?
Yeah. The
That
anomaly.
is,
You're the anomaly, right?
that it's like, it's not because I take you to take this medicine or do this treatment. Like,
Right.
hey, you did this without any help from me.
Right, exactly, exactly. And I believe in being all natural.
Yes.
It's so funny. I was just talking. A girlfriend of mine sent me a message last night. She says, "Oh, the city is being able to give away free 3-year rabies vaccines. Make sure you bring your pets. It's going to be free." And I told her a story that goes back about maybe, I don't know, 20, 30 years ago or so. I ended up bringing my cat to the veterinarian and she ended
Hmm.
up getting the 3-year vaccine. They gave it to her in her leg. I'll have you know, right at the injection site, she developed what is called a bone cancer, a type of bone cancer tumor in her flesh. It was
And it
so
was right.
anomalous. It was in the exact place where they did the injection. And I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I'm not.
No,
I'm
no,
not.
I know exactly
But
what you mean.
there's always going to be like a question mark. How's it going to react with your body and your truth?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And, I will never do a 3-year, something that stays in the body that long, because that
Right.
costs me, close to $20,000 in veterinary bills. And she had to have extensive surgery, and she lived through it. She lived to be 21 years old.
Wow.
But yeah, it was a very, very, very long time ago. But, having to be able to, clean the wick, the drainage wick from the wound, from the surgery and everything like that, that's
Hmm.
something that stays with you. And it says, and I told her the story, and she says, oh my God. I says, you know what? You're better off just doing the 1 year. You're better off just
Yes.
doing the 1 year. Don't do the extend thing, because you don't know. You don't know if your body's going to react to it.
Well,
And
see
that's the
now,
key, is a
that's the
reaction.
thing as far as pets. Um, a lot of, well, I'm going to say certain counties. I'm not going to say all counties.
Right.
They, if you want to spay them,
Right.
you know, they,
Hmm.
especially if because usually the counties will have an inexpensive program
Yes.
so you could
Spay
spay
neuter.
or neuter your product
Yeah. Friends of
or your pet.
animals is one of them. Yeah.
But
Hmm.
unless you bring in proof of that they've had their rabies shot,
Hmm.
they'll give them the shot. Like you can't have one without the other. And then we're going to register them, and then you better pay this yearly fee because if not,
Right.
and they had a big scam going down in Miami where they were basically telling you, hey, you know what? We sent you a notice that the registration on your pet was expiring and you didn't renew it, and now we're going to fine you. And you know what? It's like a racket up here where I'm at now. It stopped. I mean, I when I was down there, I even went to I took him. I said, I want a hearing. I want a hearing with a board,
Good.
and I fought it. And no, we sent it. I said, how many? I asked him, how many of those notices? I said, first of all, that dog, I don't have it anymore. But if I would have received a notice, I would have notified you guys.
Right.
No, because we did. I said, well, let me ask you something. How many of these do you send out on a monthly basis? Oh, like 65,000 or something like that. I said, okay, so every year you send out this a month. So you're going to tell me absolutely, let's go by that. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt. Not that you didn't
Hmm.
send it, that it couldn't have gotten lost.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
they backed down like
Of
real quick.
course. Yeah.
And but yeah, even the pet thing, it was like, man, even now there's stuff going on as far as making you do certain things with your pets, and you're not the first one that I've heard that the pets have had some type of weird reaction to
Oh yeah.
like the rabies vaccine or stuff like that.
Of course, yeah, definitely. It's unfortunate when it has to happen to somebody who can't fend for their own, or have a voice,
Yes.
because they can't say no. I don't feel
Oh,
good about this, or something's not right, or what have you. So it's a scary situation,
yeah.
and you're at the mercy of the
Oh, yeah.
authorities, for lack of
Yes.
better words.
Yes. It was
Yeah.
um, even I'm not gonna say, but even certain pet shops that they have like a discounted like if you have a puppy and you want to bring in the puppy and get all these shots at the end, if you want it, they register you with like we're going to find out who you are, where you live, where the dog is kept at, and you're going to get this back. And it's like, what if I want to do the rest of these, the distemper and all the other stuff, but not do that one?
Sure.
No, you've got
Right.
to do that. You've got to do that.
Oh
So
yeah, I
yeah.
think they're doing that even now with the COVID-19 vaccines, for the children in the schools now.
Let me tell you, my kids are adults and everything.
Right.
And I'd be, and you know what? I'm a wimp. I'm gonna admit it, Chickie. I'm a wimp. Don't beat anybody up. But I think that that's the one point where I would become like, when you see the women taking their earrings off and stuff. I think that's the
Uh-huh.
point I would do. I'm taking my earrings off and I'm taking off my shoes. If somebody ever was trying something along those lines with one of my kids, one of my children, if they were young, it'd be like, no, I'm not having that.
Oh
Nuh-uh.
yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. I think that no matter what we do, I think we're going to be, socially conditioned or subjugated in some kind of way, to be reminded that you will know your place as a worker bee. You have no place in the
Yes,
hierarchy. No.
yes. And you know what?
Are we?
I'm hoping that a lot of people, and I know that they're going to do either homeschooling or pod schooling or something
Right.
along those lines because if not, I mean, you know, I hate to, think about what's coming for the generations that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. There's been a boom even with Connections Academy, with the online schooling and everything. A lot of
Mhm.
people have turned to that as well, but it looks like a lot of them are even saying that they I think they tried to say at one point, I don't remember which state it was, but they tried to be able to take the online schooling and say, oh well, we get the kids together, and be able to do your community gym or your community athletics or whatever, and your child still needs to be vaccinated. And it's like, what?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? What happened to free choice? And they're going to try to group it in. I think they're going to do like an all-in-one, like your measles, your polio, your rubella,
Right.
Whatever it is. But
Exactly.
yeah,
All those things that, and this is, and like exactly like what you said. I'm not an anti-vaxxer. It's just that lately things have
right.
happened, which is like,
Too
I don't think
much.
that what's there is what it used to be before. Once upon a time,
Right.
when your
Yeah.
kids would get these things
Mm-hmm.
that, and I mean, I could do a 5 hour show with you, Chickie,
Ah,
and then I'm, by the way, I can say this because I was born in the United States, but I'm a product of immigration. Okay, I'm
okay.
Cuban. I'm Cuban
Okay.
American, but the southern border, we've got people crossing over with all these weird diseases. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
that have been eradicated, but nobody cares about that.
Right. Yeah.
Hello,
Right.
polio, tuberculosis. Some of
Mhm.
these diseases are highly contagious.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
and nobody, but that's not a problem. But then, the flip side is what you just described, where hey, we've got to make sure that you've got a shot for this and that and that and that,
Mm-hmm.
and in the process, God knows what it's going to do to, now it's like a big question mark
Yeah, it is.
down,
It definitely is. Well, I'll tell you something. Back in the 1990s, I worked for Nature magazine
hmm
and I worked with their conference department. It was a pleasure and an honor to be able to work with such a prestigious medical journal. And I ended up meeting a lot of the movers and shakers who are shaping today's medical science, including Dr. Malone.
Okay.
Yeah, everybody knows his name.
Yes.
And mRNA, it definitely, he screamed about it. He did. And that's all I'm
hmm
going to be able to say. This is the granddaddy. And they say, no, 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 he wasn't. But you know what? I was there for it.
So
I
he
was there.
is.
I know, yeah,
Yeah. Oh no.
yeah, I was there for it.
Yeah, I know they can call it whatever you want to call it, but normally, um, things like that where it was like you just that bad word, a choice, and you wanted
Yeah,
to, and that's evaporated. That's being eliminated out of our lexicon.
yeah,
Do you want to be able? No, you're not. No, no, you don't have that. You cannot say one way or the other. You're going to have to.
right. Yeah,
Um,
that's true. You have to make a choice.
yes, yes,
Exactly.
yes, yes,
Exactly.
yes, yes.
I
So
have a
I mean,
philosophy. I have a theory on this, Marlene. And my theory and my philosophy is that slavery has never gone away.
no, it hasn't.
It hasn't because it's the taxation. We're still slaves.
Yes,
All of
of
us, every
course.
single one of us. And there's people that are screaming for reparations. God bless them. Every single one of us is a
It's like this.
slave.
It's like, okay, you know what? And nowadays, yeah, it is. I mean, you could, let's face it, you never can say, hey, I'm going to pay this, whatever it is, off a piece of land, whatever, and that's it,
Yeah.
I'm done.
Well, you
You
don't
know,
own that. No, you
no,
don't. No, you're still
no,
paying for it till the day you die.
yes,
And
and
then,
beyond.
yeah, exactly. And beyond, you
Because
never stop. You're a
even
slave.
if you, let's say you pass it on to your kids, it gets reassessed by the county and then they
That's
tax
right.
it at its current value.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So even if, let's say, your parents bought this, okay, you guys, calm down. It's thundering. I know. I have a couple of my, see, I'm using the enforcer guys. Um,
Ah,
Even if, let's say, they held on to that property for 30, 40 years, whatever, and they bought it
right,
when it was very low and the taxes, once you pass it on to them,
right.
the county, which is usually the one that taxes, at least here in Florida, they would
Mhm,
reassess the then at current values, and 9 times out of 10, that place, that whatever it is worth a lot more money.
mhm. Oh, definitely, definitely, without a doubt. By the way, I want to mention something about your
Yes.
dog too. The water is a great distraction. It definitely is. It's the same thing like when we have the cats. right? And the cats are doing something they're not supposed to do. You take a can and it's filled with coins and you drop it on the floor and it makes a big noise. But it's a negative reaction either way because you're startling them. They're already startled, right? So have you tried thunder shirts or trying
You
to
know
be able
what?
to do
I have
therapy?
8. I have 8 of them, and I
Okay.
have 2
Okay.
that thunder. See, there's other one over here. She's
Yeah.
sleeping. She's like, I don't care.
What about heavy duty spandex?
Oh no,
You
no,
know
no.
what I mean?
No, they. You know what that is? They get on top of me. I'll have one stripey. Pretty soon, she's going to be trying to get on top of me, and that
That's
calms
cute.
her down. She'll
Okay.
sit on my lap, and I hold her.
And the warmth.
And this, it's really funny because they all look at me when they pull it out. It's like, oh, she's got the squirt gun.
Uh-huh.
It's like,
Yeah.
but and but everybody's, I've got those 2, and then they calm them down, and then they're okay.
Okay.
I've had them since they were. I how's this? I rescued a pregnant girl with
Uh,
one of those things, and I ended up keeping 3 of the, and it's like it grew. One of those, the gifts that
yeah.
keep on giving. One of those deals.
Yeah.
So basically, I didn't birth them physically, but
No,
I
I
was there when
understand.
they were. So yeah, I'm like, even though Mama's here,
Mm-hmm.
everybody ends up in my lap when
Oh,
something goes down. And
oh yeah,
where's
with the
my
thunder and the
come here,
lightning.
Dixie. Dixie, come here. Come here, baby. This is I'm gonna come here, baby.
You do
This is
know,
my
I
latest
know, I
this
know
is my
animal
latest addition.
communication.
This
Did
is
you know?
my I call her my here, do you know, you pain in the neck? I call her my mascot for the fight club because she's got one black eye.
Oh, that's so cute.
That's her. She's all white except for that one ear and the
Nice.
one eye.
Oh,
She's my
Dixie.
girl. She's
Did
my
you know that I
girl.
do animal communication as well?
Really? Oh
Yeah.
my God. Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
around here it'd be like, because there's always stuff
Nice.
going on, right, my girl?
Oh, she loves you
She's
so
not,
much.
she'll be a year old in October.
Oh, wow. She's very bonded to you.
Oh yeah, yes, you are. Yes, you are.
Hmm.
And well, but she gets into everything. Oh my God.
I believe
It's like
it.
whenever when there's a kid that when you lose sight of them,
Yeah.
run. This is her. It's like whenever it's like, Dixie, Dixie, where are you, Dixie?
Oh,
She
that's
comes
too
up
funny.
here. My glasses, she'll chew the ends are chewed. I have
Oh,
to put my thing. If
because
we
you're
leave
scent.
everything,
Yeah, the scent is
but
horrible.
she has something about eyeglasses because she's done the same to my husband. She'll go into the drawer of her nightstand. She it's not that it's left out. She looks for stuff, and
Oh,
she's that
wow.
prototypical puppy.
She's adorable.
But then I know they all grow out of it. So
Yeah.
yeah, they're my little pack, right,
Nice.
sweetheart.
She is
Yeah,
adorable. She is
she's my.
so sweet.
I feel like yeah, this is my little kid though. I don't
Fur
have
kid. The fur kid. We still consider them. They're
they're.
little people in their own way.
Oh yeah, no. If I go out on the porch and they'll go out in the yard, and if I step back in, they all come back in and watch me.
Oh, that's so cute.
They
Yeah.
have to keep line of sight of me, and it's like I'm coming back out, guys. Okay, okay. If we see you, we'll be around because I have acreage, and we'll
Okay.
be out. But if you step back in, they all come
Yeah.
galloping in just to make sure to keep an
Oh,
eye on me.
that's
And
so
it's funny
cute.
because that's like we got to take care of you. It's like okay, I get it, I get it.
Mhm. Oh, believe it. I totally believe it. Now, have they been trained to be able to do their yeses and their nos? Do they do that?
No, the best training they've gotten is that they leave my chickens, my poultry alone.
Okay.
Okay, and they've all trained all of them so
Right.
that they don't. The worst, Dixie at the beginning, she would chase some of the roosters around, and then she caught on like leave the poultry alone. Don't do
Okay.
anything to the poultry.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. I think all animals know what yes and no means.
Yes.
So you can teach them this is yes and this is no. And then you ask them a question. Do you understand me? I want you to tell me yes or no. And they will do it.
Really, I gotta do that. I gotta practice that.
Yes.
Mine know they know like, and it's really funny because you could tell they look at your facial
Yes, they
face
do.
like just to figure out, and they know inside outside.
Yes, they
Or
do.
if I'm calling one of them and I hadn't figured that they're here, they'll come up behind me and tap me on the back of my leg, like, I mean, he in here,
Yes,
you know.
definitely. The one thing I should tell you also about those yeses and nos is that some animals demonstrate it in the form of micro gestures. So you will not get a big pronounced yes or a big pronounced no. Sometimes it's just as subtle as that or
Really? Okay.
that. It's very, very, very subtle. So you have to watch and be patient. Give them like a full minute and you can re-ask the question. Yeah, this means yes, this means no. Please answer the question. Do you want chicken or do you want turkey? You know, whatever
Right,
it
right,
is.
right, right.
Exactly.
I gotta
But
do that. I'm gonna let you
yeah,
guys know.
they're just opening up pathways for animal communication, and they do understand. They do. They're all very, very, very smart. They've been around us since they're tiny little pups. They
Oh
understand
yes.
human nature. Cats do the same thing. You can do this with wildlife as well. You can teach them. This means yes. This means no. And you'd see a rabbit outside, and you'd say to the rabbit, I have a carrot. Do you want this smell? And of course they can smell it. This means yes. This means no. Do you want the carrot? And they'll put their head down a little bit like that. That means yes, you toss them the carrot. But it's that simple. I've done this with wild deer. I've done this with wild
Really?
rabbit. I've done this with feral cats. It
Okay.
works with a lot of them.
I
So
gotta I gotta practice. I'm gonna practice on them, and
you're gonna have fun with it.
yes. I mean, I've got a lot of wildlife out here, but like the squirrels, but they kind of like when they see you come out,
Yeah.
even though I've had a few that have come up on the porch because I
Hmm.
put out like bird seed and other stuff, and they'll come in. But yeah, yeah, it's like
Yeah, you just
I've
have to
got
be slow with squirrels. Squirrels will come up to you. Squirrels will come over, sit on your lap. They'll climb on your shoulder. They'll climb on your head. They're very, very friendly animals. But they have to see you sitting still. Sit on the floor of the porch or the deck
okay,
or whatever when you see them, and just sit there and just see that you're not going to threaten them. You're not going to throw food at them. You're not going to do anything. But you can throw maybe like food down, maybe a foot away, and you can say,
right, and see
"This is
them
for
come
you."
in.
They can see, right. But sometimes you have to sit there for like an hour. If you've got nothing going on, you're just going to sip your morning cup of coffee, and you're going to say, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going to hurt you. And you just keep on talking to them, giving them the psychological respect. They'll be like, oh. So they did this big experiment in Central Park and also in Boston Commons. And
Uh-huh.
sure enough, the squirrels started being able to trust the humans more. And somewhere I've got photographs of a squirrel
Okay.
on each knee, one on each shoulder, and one on my head. And
Wow.
they were all over me. And I would bring them peanuts, and I would say, "Here, have a
Okay.
peanut." What they would do is they'd take the peanut, and then they take your finger, and they would like shake your hand, like saying thank you. They were
Wow.
incredible. And then somebody came in, they said, the experiment is over. We now need to exterminate them. And they made
What?
some excuse and they said, oh, they've got rabies. They didn't have no freaking rabies. Get out of town. So, because it was constantly interacting with humans, what are they going to
Right,
interact with in the
exactly.
middle of the city? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? The rats didn't care. The rats are smart. They could stay away from the squirrels. So
Yeah.
they went ahead and they exterminated all of the squirrels because these squirrels were super intelligent. They were sitting on people's
Oh my
laps,
God.
hand feeding them. They're docile. They don't care. Squirrels are
That's
nice.
horrible.
And I'm not telling your listeners and your watchers to be able to go out there and start being able to bring squirrels into your home
No,
because
but let
it's
me tell you
still
something. I'm surprised nobody protested this, the extermination of the squirrels in Central Park.
I think it just
I,
happened so rapidly that people went to even
by
I
the
went
time they
back to
realized it was over.
Commons. Yeah, by the time I realized I went back and I was like, where are all the squirrels? And I was talking to one of the park keepers. He's unfortunately had to exterminate them. They had rabies. And I'm like, what kind of BS is that?
Right.
Come on now. Come
Yeah.
on. And same thing
Yeah.
with Central Park. People used to sit under the trees or, be out in the middle of the park. The squirrels will come right up to them and eat right out of your hand.
Yeah, of
What are you
course,
going to
because they're
do?
used to.
Yeah, they're used to the people, and everybody got along just fine. Nobody got bit. There was never a problem. The animals were
Yeah.
very well behaved, and the people were well behaved. And I guess it was a big experiment to see what would end up happening.
Yeah. All those fat, happy squirrels. Oh no,
It's
I tell everybody because since I have exotic birds and I have here and then I have the best population of squirrels and animals because down the food chain, everybody gets to eat
yes.
because I'm always, believe me,
Oh yeah.
so I've got a lot of fat, happy squirrels. I call it, my area is like the sanctuary.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
awesome. That's
Yeah,
fun.
so
It's
yeah, I
always a
keep
lot of
everybody
fun.
like, like, all right, you can, and I mean, I've got buzzards, I've got bald eagles, I've got, there's a couple of foxes who come in there, and it'd be like, because they've done something to my chicken, and I've got an owl, a couple of owls
Oh
that I've
nice.
lost a couple of chickens to. That's why, as a matter of fact, when I finish here, I got to go
Oh,
and lock up their coop.
oh
But
yeah.
yeah, but no, I can't go against an animal if it's their nature.
Of
You understand?
course.
Because
Yes.
that
Circle of
maliciousness is
life.
something that we think of as humans, and animals is you cannot hold their nature against them.
That's
Even though
true.
at times I feel like I'm gonna like if I catch you out here, I'm gonna,
Right.
but
Yeah, exactly. It's a circle of life. There's only so
it
much that you can
it
possibly
is
do.
what
And
it
what are you
is.
going to do if the owl or, whatever
Right?
raptor is out there that's hungry, and it
Yeah,
goes, oh,
this is
it's food.
it's nothing against you personally.
Yeah,
It's just that yeah, that chicken stuck its head out, and guess what?
yeah,
It ended up without a head.
yeah. I used to, when I lived in New Mexico, I had wild rabbits that would come
Uh-huh.
around and I would hand feed them. And it took a long time to be able to build that rapport with them, but they did. And then eventually, the raptors came in and they took them and they carried them off. Next thing I know, I'm looking at my roof and I'm like, it's my bunny guts.
Yep, it is.
Yeah, it's
It
sad, but
is.
what are you going to do? You
There's
just
nothing you
stress
can do. I mean,
circle
it's
of
like
life.
the animal's not doing it like, yeah, it's got to eat, and that's the way they also control the population of
That's true.
rabbits. Otherwise, they would, get out of control.
Yeah,
But
that's
yeah,
very
us
true.
humans, we're so sentimental.
Yeah, it's true. It is very true. I have rabbits in my yard all the time, and I'm like, "Do you want a carrot? Do you want an orange stick?" And they're like,
Yeah,
"Ooh,
good. Yeah, of course, man. We're gonna stick around, man. It's like
I'm
this
gonna,
is great
yeah,
over here.
you will mate, okay?" And then what I'm gonna do is, when it's time for your population to be reduced, I'm going to be able to take you out. I'm going to put you in the meat grinder, and I'm going to feed you to my cats. That's the circle of life.
Yeah, there's well, you know what? Around here, I have armadillos also that they make holes, and it's like, oh, you guys,
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
yeah, it's just one of those things that, it's just the way it is. It's nothing against us personally, even though
yeah,
we could
that's
take it
true.
personally.
Right? Yeah,
Chicky,
it's true.
it has been wonderful to talk to you. I could keep on talking and talking and talking and talking to you,
It's been a
but
pleasure.
it has most certainly been a pleasure, and I want to wish you the best of luck.
Thank you so very much.
I'm gonna put a link to your website on the credits of the
Appreciate
show,
that. Yeah,
and I hope that you come back soon and we can keep on talking about all this interesting stuff.
indeed. Always a pleasure and, of course, an honor. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Oh,
And, of course, for all that you do in your community. You're
thank you.
appreciated more than you can ever possibly imagine.
Thank you, Chicky. Take care.
Thank you. You as well.
Bye bye. I'm going to make the end of the show real quick because this has been a long interview, but it's been great. So just go to MP Pellicer, which is my website if you want to sign up for my Substack newsletter. Like I said, I've got all the links to everything, the podcast, the video links, whatever. It's there. You're going to find it there. My books and links to just all the platforms where you can get the video besides YouTube. It's all over the place. As a matter of fact, I remind a lot of people that, if you like on Roku's and all this, if I'm also on the Rumble on besides YouTube, you go to Rumble, you can find me on the TV that way. Not only YouTube but Rumble and other video platforms. You can find the video versions of the show. And like I said on the newsletter, I post also older shows that are still really interesting. I mean, I look at them sometime. I try to look at them like, oh, is this still relevant? I mean, or is this like passe? Like, oh, but no. I mean, I think they're pretty relevant still, and it's interesting. Uh, this thing about the paranormal, in a sense, it's timeless. All right, and I'm going to give you, for instance, I still listen to old recordings of Art Bell that he was doing in the late 90s and in 2000. As a matter of fact, last night I was listening, I want to say it was either 2000 or 2001 interviews, or it was either an interview or open lines, one of those deals. I can't remember. And I was listening to this. I was like, man, this is great. This is a great show. And that thing is over 20 years old. My point being that some of these subject matter are timeless. All right. Not like, current affairs, which is like, okay, that's done. It's come and gone. So again, go to mppellicer.com or miamighostchronicles.com, and I will be seeing you guys next week with another great guest, and I really hope you enjoyed this. But now I got to go and put my chickens away.